Somewhere in the quietest corners of the Pokémon world, there exist beings whose presence reshapes continents and calms oceans. Creatures born from ancient forces, wrapped in mythology so deep that even their names carry weight across generations. Tonight we drift through the hidden stories of legendary Pokémon, the guardians whose power sits just beyond human understanding. Before we drift off, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an upload, and let me know where you're watching from. And the best place to start is where silver wings fold against deep ocean currents, where a guardian chooses silence over spectacle, and where the weight of restraint becomes the measure of true strength. Lugia exists in a space between myth and measured choice. Its silver body cuts through water at depths where light cannot reach, moving through pressure that would crush ordinary creatures. The design is sleek, almost aerodynamic, despite its bulk, with wings that fold close when diving and spread wide when ascending. Each feather is structured to withstand both crushing oceanic weight and the friction of high-altitude flight. This duality runs through everything about Lugia, a Pokémon built for two worlds, yet choosing to inhabit neither fully. The lore describes Lugia as the guardian of the seas, but the title feels incomplete when you examine what it actually protects. Lugia doesn't patrol coastlines or guide ships through fog. It rests at the bottom of oceanic trenches, far from the surface, where its movements won't disturb the balance above. A single flap of its wings can generate storms powerful enough to reshape weather patterns across entire regions. So it stays below, where the only pressure it creates is against water too dense to transmit destruction upward. Ancient Johto stories claim that Lugia retreated voluntarily, that it recognized its own capacity for harm and made a conscious choice to limit its presence. There's something quietly tragic in that narrative, a being so powerful that its natural movements become weapons. The Whirl Islands sit as monuments to this choice, remote and storm-battered, accessible only to those patient enough to navigate the currents. The chambers inside are carved by centuries of Lugia's presence, smooth walls shaped by water displaced over generations. The connection between Lugia and the legendary bird trio adds context to its isolation. Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres represent elemental extremes: ice, lightning, and fire pushed to their mythological limits. When they clash, nature itself buckles under the strain. Lugia's role is to calm these conflicts, to restore balance when the bird's powers threaten to spiral beyond control. The Orange Islands arc in the anime depicted this dynamic clearly, showing Lugia rising from the ocean to quell a dispute that had already begun reshaping the region's climate. What makes this role interesting is that Lugia doesn't overpower the birds. It doesn't dominate through superior strength or ancient authority. It calms them. The psychic energy that flows through Lugia's body serves as both weapon and restraint, suppressing its own storm-generating abilities while projecting waves of stabilization outward. This internal conflict, the constant management of destructive potential through mental discipline, defines Lugia more than any battle ever could. The design reflects this duality. Silver coloring suggests purity and reflection, qualities associated with water and moonlight. But the shape is draconic, powerful, built for combat despite Lugia's preference for peace. The eyes are intelligent, almost sad, in certain artistic depictions, as though carrying the weight of what it could do if it ever chose violence over restraint. Competitive battlers nicknamed it the Great Wall, a reference to its defensive capabilities and ability to endure attacks that would obliterate most Pokémon. Physically, Lugia defies easy categorization. Often grouped with bird Pokémon due to its wings and flying type, its physiology suggests something closer to a marine leviathan. The ability to survive crushing ocean depths while also soaring freely through stratospheric altitudes requires biological adaptations that shouldn't coexist. Its feathers are described as flexible, capable of folding flat against its body to reduce drag underwater, then expanding and stiffening for flight. Some researchers theorize that Lugia predates modern bird Pokémon entirely, representing an evolutionary path that diverged millions of years ago. The psychic typing adds another layer. While many legendary Pokémon possess psychic abilities, Lugia's manifestation is uniquely focused on suppression rather than expression. It uses psychic energy to contain its own power, to prevent its physical movements from causing unintended harm. This inward focus contrasts sharply with legendaries like Mewtwo, whose psychic abilities project outward as displays of dominance. Lugia's strength lies in what it doesn't do, the storms it prevents, the conflicts it doesn't escalate, the destruction it chooses not to unleash. Culturally, Lugia occupies a fascinating position. Unlike Ho-Oh, whose appearances ignite hope and inspire chosen trainers, Lugia's interventions are quiet and often unseen. Sailors in Johto's coastal towns speak of calm waters appearing suddenly during dangerous storms, unexplained shifts in weather that save lives without apparent cause. These moments, attributed to Lugia by tradition, happen without confirmation or spectacle. The Guardian doesn't announce itself. It simply acts when necessary, then returns to the depths. This pattern reinforces a core theme in Lugia's mythology. It is a protector that understands the danger of being seen as a savior. Public appearances would attract attention, worship, dependence. By remaining hidden, Lugia ensures that humanity doesn't lean on its interventions, that sailors still respect the ocean's power, that communities still prepare for storms. The occasional rescue becomes an act of mercy rather than obligation, maintaining the boundary between guardian and deity. The contrast with Ho-Oh is deliberate and thematic. Ho-Oh represents fire, rebirth, hope, and the forward momentum of destiny. Lugia represents water, calm, suppression, and the responsibility that comes with overwhelming power. One revives, the other restrains. One chooses champions, the other chooses solitude. Together they form a balanced mythology, two approaches to guardianship that complement rather than compete. Biologically, Lugia's connection to the sea raises questions about its origins. Some theories suggest it descended from ancient dragon Pokémon that adapted to oceanic environments. Others propose it represents a unique evolutionary branch, neither fully bird nor dragon, but something older and more primal. The lack of known relatives or evolutionary stages supports this idea. Lugia exists as a singular entity, without pre-evolutions or alternate forms, suggesting it was either created for a specific purpose or evolved in isolation over incomprehensible timescales. Before you drift off, maybe tap subscribe for more gentle videos, and let me know where you're listening from tonight. The relationship between Lugia and human culture varies by region. In Johto, it's revered as a stabilizing force, the guardian that keeps elemental chaos at bay. In Kanto, where the legendary birds are also present, Lugia's mythology is less defined, often conflated with generic sea monsters or dragons. The Orange Islands treat it as sacred, with festivals and rituals designed to honor its role in maintaining regional harmony. These cultural differences reflect how legendary Pokémon are interpreted through local context, their mythologies shaped by geographic proximity and historical encounters. In competitive battling, Lugia's defensive capabilities make it a staple of certain team compositions. High special defense, excellent bulk, and access to recovery moves like Roost create a Pokémon capable of weathering repeated assaults. Multiscale, its hidden ability, reduces damage from attacks when Lugia is at full health, further emphasizing its role as an endurance specialist. This mechanical identity mirrors its lore perfectly. Lugia exists to outlast threats, to remain standing when everything else has fallen. Moveset design reinforces this theme. Aeroblast, Lugia's signature move, is powerful but not overwhelming. It's a precise strike rather than an apocalyptic attack, delivering significant damage without the environmental devastation implied by its storm-generating wings. Calm Mind boosts special attack and special defense simultaneously, allowing Lugia to gradually become unstoppable while maintaining its defensive core. Even offensive sets prioritize control over raw destruction, reflecting the Pokémon's philosophy of measured force. The anime portrayed Lugia as intelligent and communicative, capable of telepathy and complex emotional expression. This depiction added depth to its character, transforming it from a distant guardian into a being with motivations and concerns. The bond between Lugia and Ash in the Orange Islands arc demonstrated that despite its power and isolation, Lugia values connection and understands the importance of cooperation. This humanization made its choice to return to the ocean more poignant, a conscious decision to resume solitude despite forming meaningful relationships. Lugia's nesting behavior, depicted in certain episodes and side stories, reveals a softer side. Young Lugia, while still powerful, lack the restraint of adults and often cause unintentional chaos. Parent Lugia guide them carefully, teaching control before strength, instilling the philosophy of measured power from an early age. This intergenerational transfer of responsibility suggests that Lugia's restraint isn't purely instinctual, but learned, a cultural practice passed down through families over centuries. The Whirl Islands serve as both home and prison, a place of safety that also represents voluntary exile. The caves are vast and labyrinthine, carved by water and time into chambers that echo with the sound of distant waves. Reaching Lugia's resting place requires navigating these passages, solving environmental puzzles, and demonstrating patience. This design choice, requiring trainers to earn the encounter rather than stumbling upon it, mirrors Lugia's philosophy. Those who reach it have proven they understand the value of restraint and preparation. Symbolically, Lugia represents the idea that true power lies in control. Many legendary Pokémon demonstrate their strength through displays of force, reshaping landscapes or overwhelming opponents. Lugia's strength is demonstrated through absence, through what it chooses not to do. The storms it prevents, the conflicts it avoids escalating, the destruction it never unleashes despite possessing the capability. This philosophy resonates beyond Pokémon, touching on broader themes of responsibility and self-awareness. The silver coloring also carries meaning. Silver represents reflection and clarity, the ability to see oneself honestly. Lugia's choice to retreat stems from self-knowledge, from understanding its own nature well enough to recognize the danger it poses. This level of introspection is rare among legendary Pokémon, many of whom act according to instinct or ancient programming. Lugia thinks, evaluates, and makes conscious decisions based on long-term consequences rather than immediate desires. Some myths claim that Lugia can sense disturbances in emotional balance across vast distances, feeling when the legendary birds grow restless or when natural harmony begins to fray. This heightened awareness would explain its timely interventions, appearing exactly when needed without being summoned. If true, this ability would be both blessing and burden, forcing Lugia to remain constantly vigilant, monitoring threats it hopes never to confront. The relationship between Lugia and human trainers is complicated. Capturing a legendary Pokémon implies dominance, a claim of ownership over a being that predates civilization. Lugia's willingness to be caught suggests either respect for a trainer's strength or recognition that traveling with them serves a greater purpose. Perhaps Lugia sees partnership as an opportunity to observe humanity more closely, to understand the species it protects from a distance. Or perhaps it simply enjoys the connection, finding companionship more valuable than eternal solitude. In battle, Lugia moves with calculated grace. Each attack is deliberate, each dodge precise. There's no wasted energy, no theatrical flourishes. Even when delivering devastating blows, Lugia maintains composure, treating combat as a problem to solve rather than a contest to dominate. This measured approach frustrates aggressive opponents who expect legendary battles to be explosive spectacles. Against Lugia, victory requires patience, strategy, and endurance. The lore surrounding Lugia's creation in the Pokémon world remains vague. Unlike some legendaries with clear origin stories, Lugia exists without explanation, a constant presence since time immemorial. Some theories suggest it formed naturally, an evolutionary response to the need for balance in a world increasingly dominated by elemental extremes. Others propose it was created by an even older power, a failsafe against planetary destruction. Without confirmation, Lugia remains enigmatic, its history as deep and unreachable as the trenches it calls home. The sound of Lugia's cry, deep and resonant, carries across water for miles. It's a sound associated with both warning and comfort, depending on context. Sailors interpret it as advice to turn back, to avoid waters too dangerous to navigate. Coastal communities hear it as reassurance, confirmation that their guardian still watches. The duality mirrors everything about Lugia, simultaneously protective and distant, powerful and restrained. Thematically, Lugia embodies the concept of necessary isolation. Some beings are too dangerous to exist in close proximity to others, not through malice, but through sheer magnitude. By choosing solitude, Lugia protects the world from itself, accepting loneliness as the price of responsibility. This sacrifice, quiet and unacknowledged, elevates Lugia beyond simple guardianship into something closer to tragic heroism. It saves the world by staying away from it, a paradox that defines its entire existence. The connection between Lugia and deep ocean ecosystems adds another dimension. Marine Pokémon reportedly behave differently in waters where Lugia resides, exhibiting unusual calm and cooperation. Some researchers believe Lugia's psychic presence creates localized zones of harmony, suppressing territorial aggression and reducing predation. If true, these zones would function as underwater sanctuaries, places where even the ocean's inherent violence gives way to temporary peace. Visually, Lugia's design balances elegance with intimidation. The streamlined body suggests speed and agility, while the pronounced shoulder plates and thick neck convey durability. The tail ends in distinctive points that serve as rudders during flight and stabilizers underwater. Every element serves dual purposes, reflecting Lugia's existence between worlds. Even its eyes, large and expressive, seem capable of perceiving both physical threats and emotional disturbances, monitoring multiple layers of reality simultaneously. The mythology of Lugia extends beyond Johto into other regions, though interpretations vary. Some coastal cultures worship it as a sea deity, others fear it as a storm demon. These conflicting narratives reflect humanity's complicated relationship with the ocean itself, simultaneously life-giving and deadly, calm and catastrophic. Lugia embodies this contradiction, capable of both nurturing and destroying, choosing mercy despite possessing wrath. In the games, Lugia's encounter design emphasizes rarity and significance. Players must navigate challenging dungeons, solve puzzles, and often complete significant story milestones before gaining access. This gating ensures that capturing Lugia feels earned, that it represents genuine achievement rather than random luck. The encounter itself is often preceded by environmental changes, rising winds, or darkening skies, hinting at the power about to be unleashed. The music that accompanies Lugia encounters carries weight and gravitas. Composed to evoke both majesty and melancholy, it reinforces the themes of isolation and restrained power. The melody rises and falls like ocean waves, never quite reaching a triumphant crescendo, always maintaining an undercurrent of sadness. This musical storytelling enhances the encounter, transforming it from a simple battle into a meeting with a tragic figure. Competitively, Lugia has remained relevant across multiple generations, a testament to its well-designed stat distribution and move pool. While power creep has introduced stronger legendaries, Lugia's defensive niche ensures it retains utility. In formats allowing legendary Pokémon, teams often include Lugia specifically to handle threats that would overwhelm more offensive options. This enduring relevance mirrors its lore, a constant presence that adapts without losing its core identity. The relationship between Lugia and Ho-Oh, often framed as rivalry, is better understood as complementary balance. They represent opposing forces that together maintain equilibrium. Where Ho-Oh inspires growth and renewal, Lugia enforces stability and caution. Where Ho-Oh looks forward, Lugia looks inward. Neither approach is superior, both are necessary. Their coexistence ensures that the world experiences both progress and preservation, change and constancy. Some interpretations suggest Lugia is aware of its role in a larger cosmic balance, that it understands its place within a hierarchy of legendary Pokémon extending beyond immediate regional concerns. This awareness would explain its willingness to intervene when necessary, while otherwise maintaining distance. If Lugia sees itself as one piece in a greater machine, its actions become less about personal choice and more about fulfilling an assigned function. The emotional resonance of Lugia's story comes from its relatable struggle. Many people understand the feeling of possessing abilities or traits that must be carefully managed to avoid causing harm. Lugia's constant self-monitoring, its refusal to act rashly, its acceptance of isolation as necessary rather than chosen, all reflect human experiences of self-control and sacrifice. This accessibility makes Lugia more than a powerful Pokémon. It becomes a symbol of mature responsibility. Physically, Lugia's size is considerable, but not overwhelming. Descriptions place it around 17 feet tall, large enough to inspire awe without being impossibly gigantic. This moderate scale makes encounters feel plausible, like meeting a powerful creature rather than an incomprehensible titan. The proportions remain believable, grounded in recognizable anatomy, despite the fantastical elements. The feathers that trail from Lugia's wings shimmer with a subtle iridescence, catching light in ways that suggest more than simple biology. Some observers report seeing colors that don't quite exist, hues that exist at the edge of perception. This visual distortion, potentially caused by psychic energy interfacing with light, adds to Lugia's otherworldly presence. It exists partially outside normal physical laws, a being that bends reality through sheer existence. In terms of longevity, Lugia is effectively immortal. Sightings span centuries without apparent aging, suggesting either biological immortality or extremely slow senescence. This timelessness allows Lugia to witness the rise and fall of civilizations, to observe patterns invisible to shorter-lived species. Such perspective would naturally lead to the measured, cautious approach that defines its character. When you've seen empires crumble and ecosystems collapse, restraint becomes wisdom. The legacy of Lugia extends into popular culture beyond Pokémon. As one of the franchise's most iconic legendaries, it appears in merchandise, spin-off games, and promotional materials. This commercial success reflects genuine affection from fans who connect with its design and mythology. Lugia represents an ideal, a powerful being that chooses goodness not through ignorance of evil, but through conscious rejection of it. Some scholars within the Pokémon world study Lugia's psychic signature, attempting to understand how it suppresses its own abilities. If this mechanism could be replicated or taught, it might allow other powerful Pokémon to coexist more safely with civilization. However, research progress remains minimal. Lugia's abilities appear unique, tied to its specific biology and perhaps its individual consciousness. What works for Lugia may not translate to others. The social structure of Lugia populations, if they exist in numbers greater than 1, remains unknown. Sightings are rare enough that determining whether multiple Lugia exist simultaneously is impossible. Some theories propose a single Lugia that exists across time, appearing in different eras as needed. Others suggest a small population that maintains communication across vast distances, coordinating to ensure global coverage. Without confirmation, both possibilities remain equally valid. In artistic depictions, Lugia is often shown in flight, wings spread against stormy skies or serene sunsets. These images capture the duality of its nature, beautiful yet powerful, graceful yet dangerous. The best artwork conveys the weight of Lugia's existence, the sense that this is a being carrying responsibilities beyond comprehension. Even static images can evoke the melancholy that defines Lugia's mythology. The question of whether Lugia experiences happiness remains open. Does a being defined by restraint and isolation find joy in its existence, or does it endure out of duty? The anime suggests Lugia forms genuine bonds and experiences positive emotions, but these moments are rare and fleeting. Most of its life is spent alone, monitoring threats and suppressing its own nature. Whether this existence brings satisfaction or merely acceptance is unknowable. Trainers who've encountered Lugia in battle describe a strange sensation, a feeling of being evaluated rather than fought. Lugia's attacks feel almost perfunctory, as though it's testing the trainer rather than attempting victory. Some interpret this as Lugia holding back, others as it assessing whether the trainer is worthy of capture. Either explanation suggests intelligence and intentionality far beyond instinct. The environmental impact of Lugia's presence is subtle but measurable. Waters near its resting places exhibit unusual characteristics: reduced turbulence, higher oxygen content, and increased biodiversity. These changes persist even when Lugia is absent, suggesting its energy leaves lasting effects on ecosystems. Whether this is intentional ecological engineering or accidental byproduct remains unclear. As a symbol, Lugia represents the idea that power without wisdom is destructive. Its story teaches that strength must be tempered by understanding, that capability alone doesn't justify action. In a world increasingly grappling with questions of power and responsibility, Lugia's mythology offers a framework for ethical consideration. It's a guardian not because it's strong, but because it's wise enough to know when not to use that strength. The night sky over the Whirl Islands occasionally lights up with silver flashes, attributed to Lugia's movements deep below the surface. These displays happen without pattern, unpredictable and brief. Locals consider them good omens, signs that their guardian remains vigilant. Tourists travel specifically hoping to witness these flashes, though most leave disappointed. Lugia doesn't perform on schedule. In the end, Lugia's greatest achievement is its continued existence without catastrophe. For a being capable of reshaping continents, simply existing peacefully is a form of heroism. Every day Lugia doesn't cause destruction is a day it succeeds in its purpose. This negative definition of success, measured by what doesn't happen rather than what does, perfectly encapsulates the quiet nobility of its character. The deep ocean currents continue their eternal circulation, carrying nutrients and regulating climate, and somewhere in the darkest trenches, Lugia drifts through cold water and ancient pressure. Its wings fold close, its eyes remain open, and it waits. Not for anything specific, just waits. Ready to rise when needed, content to rest when not. A guardian whose greatest gift to the world is its absence, whose presence is felt most strongly when it chooses not to be seen. Silver wings against black water, a shimmer of psychic energy in the depths, and the quiet certainty that somewhere balance is being maintained. The concept of legendary trios introduces complex hierarchical structures within Pokémon mythology. Unlike singular legendaries that operate independently, trios function as interconnected systems where each member serves a specific role while contributing to a larger purpose. The legendary bird trio of Kanto represents one of the earliest and most influential examples of this design philosophy, establishing patterns that would influence legendary groupings throughout future generations. Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres each embody elemental extremes while maintaining internal balance that prevents their power from spiraling into chaos. Articuno's ice creates stillness and preservation. Zapdos's electricity generates energy and movement, and Moltres' fire represents transformation and renewal. These elements, when isolated, pose significant threats to regional ecosystems. Ice sheets expand unchecked, lightning storms ravage landscapes, and wildfires consume forests. The trio's existence as a balanced system prevents any single element from dominating. The geographic distribution of the birds across Kanto reflects deliberate positioning designed to maintain environmental equilibrium. Articuno resides in the Seafoam Islands, where its presence regulates ocean temperatures and generates the ice formations that give the location its name. Zapdos inhabits the power plant, drawn to concentrations of electrical energy that resonate with its own nature. Moltres claims Victory Road, a location associated with trials and transformation, mirroring the bird's thematic connection to rebirth and challenge. These locations aren't arbitrary. Each serves as a focal point where the respective bird's energy can be contained and channeled without causing regional disruption. The Seafoam Island's remote position keeps Articuno's freezing influence away from populated areas. The abandoned power plant provides Zapdos with electrical sustenance while preventing its discharges from affecting functional infrastructure. Victory Road's position as a natural barrier means Moltres' heat enhances the location's challenging nature without threatening nearby settlements. The mythology surrounding the birds predates recorded history in Kanto. Ancient murals discovered in ruins depict the trio in flight, arranged in triangular formation with Lugia centered below. These images suggest early civilizations understood the relationship between the birds and their guardian, recognizing that balance required both the elemental forces and the stabilizing presence that kept them in check. Some interpretations propose that the Birds were created specifically to test Lugia's ability to maintain harmony, a cosmic trial that continues indefinitely. Behaviorally, the birds exhibit territorial patterns consistent with their elemental natures. Articuno rarely leaves the Seafoam Islands, maintaining a static presence that mirrors ice's unchanging properties. Zapdos migrates frequently, following electrical storms and appearing wherever lightning concentrations reach critical levels. Moltres' movements are cyclical, tied to volcanic activity and seasonal temperature shifts. These patterns ensure the birds encounter each other infrequently, reducing the potential for conflicts that would require Lugia's intervention. The physical designs of the birds emphasize their elemental associations while maintaining avian characteristics that unify them as a trio. Articuno's streamlined form and ice blue plumage suggest grace and cold beauty, with tail feathers that trail like frozen vapor. Zapdos's spiky, aggressive silhouette and bright yellow coloring convey raw electrical energy, its wings resembling thundercloud formations. Moltres' flame-wreathed body and phoenix-like appearance embody fire's dual nature as both destroyer and renewer. Each bird's signature move reinforces its role within the elemental triangle. Blizzard, Articuno's devastating ice attack, can freeze entire battlefields and create weather conditions that persist beyond the immediate conflict. Thunder, Zapdos's electrical assault, strikes with precision and can paralyze opponents, disrupting their ability to respond. Fire Blast, Moltres' signature technique, delivers overwhelming heat damage while potentially inflicting burns that continue harming targets over time. These moves don't just deal damage, they alter battlefield conditions in ways that reflect each bird's environmental impact. The concept of legendary Pokémon serving elemental roles extends beyond pure mythology into measurable environmental effects. Studies conducted near the birds' territories revealed unusual atmospheric phenomena. Air temperatures around the Seafoam Islands remain consistently lower than surrounding waters would suggest. Electromagnetic readings near the power plant spike far beyond levels explained by residual machinery. Heat signatures in Victory Road's deepest chambers exceed what natural geothermal activity should produce. These anomalies confirm that the birds' presences actively shape their environments. Capture rates for the legendary birds are notably low, reflecting both their power and their wariness of human contact. Trainers attempting to catch them must navigate treacherous environments, solve environmental puzzles, and withstand attacks that can instantly incapacitate unprepared teams. This difficulty serves both gameplay and narrative purposes. Mechanically, it ensures legendary Pokémon remain special acquisitions rather than routine captures. Narratively, it reinforces that beings of such power wouldn't submit easily to human authority. The birds' relationship with each other is best understood as mutual avoidance rather than active cooperation. They don't convene regularly or coordinate actions. Instead, they maintain separate territories and influence distinct environmental systems. This separation prevents the elemental clashes that would occur if they occupied the same spaces. When forced together, as depicted in the Orange Islands arc, their inability to coexist peacefully becomes immediately apparent. Only external intervention, specifically Lugia's calming influence, can resolve conflicts that the birds themselves cannot. In competitive battling, each bird occupies a distinct niche despite sharing legendary status. Articuno's high special defense and defensive typing make it effective against certain threats but vulnerable to common attacking types. Zapdos's superior speed and an offensive presence allow it to function as a fast attacker or defensive pivot depending on team composition. Moltres struggles with a typing that leaves it vulnerable to common weaknesses, requiring careful support to function effectively. These competitive realities mirror the bird's lore, each powerful in specific contexts, but requiring careful handling to maximize effectiveness. The cultural impact of the legendary birds extends beyond their immediate mythological roles. They appear in Kanto's art, architecture, and cultural ceremonies. The traditional three-colored festival banners found in some towns use blue, yellow, and red specifically to honor Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. These celebrations acknowledge the bird's role in maintaining natural balance while also serving as community events that strengthen social bonds. The intersection of mythology and daily life demonstrates how legendary Pokémon influence human culture even when rarely seen. Some trainers report unusual phenomena when carrying one of the legendary birds. Electronic devices malfunction near Zapdos even when it's contained in a Pokéball. Temperatures drop noticeably around Articuno, with frost forming on nearby surfaces. Moltres radiates heat that makes close proximity uncomfortable, requiring handlers to maintain distance even outside of battle. These effects suggest the bird's elemental influence cannot be fully suppressed by capture, that their fundamental nature bleeds through even Pokéball containment systems. The hierarchy within the trio is subtle but present. Moltres, associated with transformation and rebirth, carries connotations of leadership through its phoenix mythology. Zapdos, representing raw energy and unpredictability, functions as a wild card whose actions are difficult to anticipate. Articuno, embodying stillness and preservation, serves as a stabilizing influence even among the birds themselves. This dynamic creates a three-way balance where no single bird can dominate the others, ensuring their conflicts remain manageable rather than catastrophic. Evolutionary biologists within the Pokémon world debate whether the legendary birds represent unique species or supremely powerful individuals of more common types. Some propose they evolved from ancient bird Pokémon exposed to elemental extremes over millions of years. Others argue they were created directly, either by natural forces coalescing into conscious form or by higher powers shaping them for specific purposes. Without access to the birds for extended study, definitive answers remain elusive. The symbolic meaning of the trio extends into philosophical territory. Ice represents stasis and death, lightning represents change and chaos, and fire represents transformation and life. Together, they form a cycle, stasis leading to chaos, chaos enabling transformation, transformation eventually settling back into stasis. This cyclical interpretation frames the birds not just as elemental forces, but as embodiments of fundamental universal processes. Their conflicts and reconciliations mirror the eternal dance between order and entropy. In the games, encountering all three birds often requires exploring Kanto's most challenging environments and solving complex puzzles. This design choice ensures players experience significant portions of the region before accessing legendary content. The birds serve as rewards for thorough exploration and skillful play, marking milestones in the player's journey. Their placement in post-game areas or difficult dungeons maintains their special status throughout the playthrough. The question of whether the legendary birds are unique individuals or representatives of a species remains officially unanswered. Multiple sightings across different regions and time periods suggest either the birds are not unique or they possess the ability to appear in multiple locations simultaneously. Some theories propose that legendary bird is a title rather than a species designation, that particularly powerful members of certain bird Pokémon lines become legendary through unknown processes. This interpretation would explain regional variance and multiple sightings without contradicting uniqueness claims. Musically, the legendary birds share leitmotifs while maintaining individual variations. Their encounter themes often incorporate elemental sound design, crystalline tones for Articuno, crackling static for Zapdos, roaring flames for Moltres. These audio cues enhance the atmosphere of each encounter, using sound to convey the bird's natures before battle even begins. The music builds tension while maintaining the majestic tone appropriate for legendary encounters. The environmental destruction potential of the legendary birds, when unbalanced, cannot be overstated. Articuno unchecked could trigger ice ages, expanding polar caps and freezing temperate zones. Zapdos's electrical storms could disable technological infrastructure across entire regions while starting fires through lightning strikes. Moltres' heat could create drought conditions, evaporate water sources, and render vast areas uninhabitable. The stakes involved in maintaining their balance justify Lugia's existence as guardian. Without active management, the birds represent existential threats to civilization and ecosystems alike. Training legendary birds requires approaches fundamentally different from ordinary Pokémon. Their power levels mean they don't benefit from traditional training methods focused on gradual stat increases. Instead, trainers must focus on building trust and understanding the bird's natures. Articuno responds to patience and consistency, appreciating trainers who demonstrate control and planning. Zapdos respects strength and decisiveness, bonding with trainers who act boldly. Moltres values passion and determination, connecting with trainers who show unwavering commitment to their goals. These personality-based bonding requirements reflect the bird's elemental associations while adding depth to their characterizations. The legendary bird's signature's moves have become iconic within Pokémon battle culture. Blizzard's combination of power and accuracy trade-off creates risk-reward scenarios that skilled trainers can exploit. Thunder's perfect accuracy during rain weather creates devastating combinations with rain-setting abilities. Fire Blast's raw power compensates for its lower accuracy, rewarding trainers willing to gamble on critical moments. These moves define not just the bird's battle identities, but also broader strategic approaches to Pokémon combat. In artistic representations, the legendary birds are almost always depicted in flight, emphasizing their freedom and mastery of the skies. Articuno appears amid snowstorms, its presence simultaneously causing and controlling the blizzard conditions. Zapdos erupts from thunderclouds, lightning crackling around its body as it descends toward targets. Moltres streaks across sunset skies, leaving trails of flame that fade slowly behind it. These dramatic visualizations capture the bird's power while maintaining their elegance and majesty. The relationship between the legendary birds and human settlement patterns in Kanto shows clear influence. Major population centers avoid proximity to the birds' territories, with towns and cities positioned to minimize exposure to elemental extremes. This geographical distribution suggests early Kanto civilizations learned through harsh experience to respect the bird's power. The few settlements near bird territories, like Cinnabar Island near where Moltres is sometimes sighted, developed specific cultural adaptations and protective measures to coexist safely. The legendary birds occasionally feature in competitive formats that allow legendary Pokémon, though restrictions often limit team compositions to prevent overwhelming advantages. In these contexts, the birds function as powerful but manageable threats, strong enough to shape team building, but not so dominant they eliminate strategic diversity. This balance reflects careful game design that preserves legendary status while maintaining competitive integrity. Thematically, the birds represent humanity's relationship with natural forces. They embody the power of ice, lightning, and fire in forms that can be understood, if not controlled. Their existence as conscious beings, rather than mindless elements, creates the possibility of negotiation and mutual respect. This framework allows for stories where humans and nature find equilibrium rather than engaging in zero-sum conflicts. The birds don't need to be defeated or dominated. They need to be understood and respected. The longevity of the legendary birds across Pokémon generations demonstrates their enduring appeal. Despite newer legendary trios and increasingly complex mythologies, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres remain instantly recognizable and beloved by fans. Regional variants introduced in later games provide fresh takes on classic designs while preserving the core elemental identities that made the originals successful. This combination of tradition and innovation keeps the birds relevant decades after their introduction. As night settles across Kanto, the legendary birds return to their respective territories. Articuno folds its wings within ice-carved chambers, temperature dropping as it settles into rest. Zapdos perches atop metal structures, electrical potential building slowly around its form. Moltres circles volcanic peaks, flame-wreathed feathers casting flickering light across stone. Three elemental forces, separated by design, waiting in stillness. And deep in the ocean, Lugia drifts through darkness, monitoring the balance, ready to intervene if harmony fractures. The system continues, ancient and eternal, elemental power contained through vigilance and understanding, moving beyond elemental forces into the realm of time itself brings us to Dialga, a legendary Pokémon whose existence operates on fundamentally different principles than creatures bound by linear progression. Dialga embodies temporal flow, its very presence distorting clocks and calendars, while simultaneously stabilizing the timeline against paradoxes that would otherwise unravel causality. Understanding Dialga requires abandoning conventional frameworks of past, present, and future in favor of comprehending time as a dimension Dialga inhabits rather than experiences sequentially. The mythology surrounding Dialga describes it as the being that controls time, but this phrasing undersells the relationship. Dialga doesn't control time the way a trainer controls a Pokémon. It is time given form and consciousness. The flow of moments from past to future is Dialga's very existence extended across the fourth dimension. When Dialga's heartbeat falters, time stutters. When it sleeps, periods of temporal stasis occur. The connection is not metaphorical, but literal and physical. Sinnoh's ancient texts describe Dialga's birth at the moment the universe began, implying it existed before time itself, a paradox that breaks logical reasoning but aligns with temporal mythology. If Dialga controls time, it must exist outside time to manipulate it, yet its existence within the universe means it's subject to temporal flow. This contradiction sits at the heart of Dialga's nature, a being that is both within and beyond the dimension it represents. Physically, Dialga's design incorporates elements suggesting both organic life and metallic construction. The steel typing reflects this duality, representing not just strength, but the rigid, unchanging nature of temporal law. Time flows in one direction, entropy increases, effects follow causes. These rules, as unbending as metal, define Dialga's essence. The blue coloration evokes deep space and the cosmic scale of temporal manipulation, while the diamond embedded in its chest symbolizes both its connection to Palkia and the crystalline structure of space-time itself. The diamond shape appears throughout Sinnoh's mythology, representing the union of space and time as fundamental dimensions. Dialga and Palkia, though often portrayed as rivals, are better understood as complementary forces. Space, without time, is frozen, inert, meaningless. Time without space has nothing to act upon, no distance to traverse, no events to sequence. Their interdependence creates the fabric of reality, with Dialga managing temporal flow, while Palkia ensures spatial consistency. Dialga's signature move, Roar of Time, manifests temporal manipulation as raw, destructive force. The attack warps time around the target, aging them rapidly, or reversing their state, or simply disrupting their temporal coherence. The recharge turn required after using this move reflects the immense energy expenditure involved in directly manipulating time. Even for a being that embodies temporal flow, bending it to destructive purposes requires recovery periods where Dialga cannot act. The lore describes Dialga residing in a dimension parallel to normal reality, a temporal plane where past, present, and future exist simultaneously. From this position, Dialga observes timeline branches, potential futures that might occur based on present decisions. This omniscient perspective allows Dialga to identify temporal anomalies, paradoxes that would collapse causality if left uncorrected. Intervention at these points stabilizes the timeline, ensuring consistent forward progression. Sinnoh's creation mythology places Dialga alongside Palkia as the direct creations of Arceus, the original one. This genealogy establishes clear hierarchy while explaining why Dialga possesses such fundamental authority over temporal mechanics. As a direct creation of the closest thing to a Pokémon deity, Dialga inherits power and responsibility proportional to its creator's will. The temporal dimension becomes Dialga's domain, its purpose, and its eternal burden. Encountering Dialga in the games requires traveling through temporal distortions to reach the Spear Pillar, a location where reality thins and dimensional barriers weaken. The journey mirrors the conceptual distance between ordinary existence and the temporal plane Dialga inhabits. Players must prove themselves worthy through battling Team Galactic, solving puzzles, and demonstrating determination. These trials ensure that anyone reaching Dialga has earned the right to face a being that could theoretically erase them from history with a thought. The battle against Dialga carries unusual weight because the stakes extend beyond personal victory. Disrupting Dialga's concentration while it maintains temporal stability could have catastrophic consequences. Time might fracture, creating alternate timelines or collapsing into paradox. The game's narrative frames this battle as necessary intervention against Team Galactic's manipulation, but the underlying risk remains. Fighting Dialga is fighting time itself, gambling that the battle concludes before temporal coherence fails. Dialga's typing, Steel and Dragon, creates interesting competitive dynamics. Steel provides defensive utility and resistance to common types, while Dragon offers offensive power and late-game sweeping potential. This combination makes Dialga viable in various team compositions, functioning as either defensive anchor or offensive pressure depending on moveset and support. The versatility reflects Dialga's nature, adapting to circumstances while maintaining core identity. In terms of stats, Dialga emphasizes special attack and bulk, creating a profile suited for sustained exchanges rather than quick sweeps. This distribution mirrors its mythological role, a being that endures across eons rather than acting in brief bursts. High special defense allows Dialga to tank hits while preparing devastating counterattacks. Adequate speed prevents it from being completely passive, maintaining offensive threat without outpacing dedicated sweepers. The question of whether Dialga experiences time linearly or perceives all moments simultaneously influences interpretations of its behavior. If Dialga sees all possible timelines at once, its actions become moves in an incomprehensibly complex game of temporal chess, responding to threats that haven't yet occurred by human reckoning. If it experiences time normally, despite controlling it, then Dialga shares humanity's limitation of sequential awareness while possessing power to alter what it perceives. Either interpretation adds depth to an already complex entity. Cultural impact within Sinnoh manifests in time-related traditions and superstitions. Clocks that run backward or stop inexplicably are attributed to Dialga's influence. Moments of déjà vu, when the present feels eerily familiar, are explained as glimpses of timeline branches Dialga has collapsed. These folk beliefs, whether accurate or not, demonstrate how legendary Pokémon shape regional culture through their mere existence. Dialga doesn't need to appear publicly to influence how people conceptualize and interact with time. The relationship between Dialga and Celebi, another time-associated legendary, remains unclear in official lore. Celebi travels through time freely, moving between past and future without apparent difficulty. Does this ability require Dialga's permission, or does Celebi operate through different mechanisms entirely? Some theories propose Celebi exists outside Dialga's jurisdiction, accessing time through dimensional shortcuts rather than direct manipulation. Others suggest Celebi is essentially Dialga's agent, granted time travel abilities to correct minor temporal anomalies without requiring Dialga's direct intervention. Dialga's interactions with humanity, when they occur, are described as brief and purposeful. Unlike legendaries that form bonds with trainers, Dialga maintains distance, perhaps recognizing that close association with temporal power could corrupt or destroy mortal minds. The few trainers who've captured Dialga report strange experiences, dreams of impossible pasts, visions of futures that might occur, and persistent sensation that every moment is simultaneously ending and beginning. The concept of legendary Pokémon existing outside normal time complicates questions of mortality and aging. If Dialga controls time, does it age? Can it die in any meaningful sense? Some interpretations suggest Dialga is effectively immortal, existing as long as time exists, which means forever by definition. Others propose that Dialga could theoretically die, but its death would create such massive temporal distortion that reality itself might end. This existential weight adds tragic dimension to Dialga's existence. It must live, not because it wants to, but because its death would be apocalyptic. Visually, Dialga's design incorporates gear-like elements and mechanical aesthetics that evoke clockwork and temporal measurement devices. These details ground the abstract concept of time manipulation in recognizable imagery, making Dialga's nature comprehensible at a glance. The shoulder plates resemble clock faces, the chest diamond functions like a pendulum, and the overall silhouette suggests both dragon and machine, organic and constructed, living and timeless. The roar Dialga produces is described as sounding like metal grinding against metal, a harsh mechanical noise that contrasts sharply with typical dragon cries. This audio design reinforces the steel typing while creating an intimidating presence. Hearing Dialga's roar reportedly causes temporary disorientation, a sensation of momentary temporal displacement, as if listeners briefly experienced time differently. Whether this effect is psychosomatic or genuinely Dialga-induced remains debated. In battle, Dialga moves with surprising grace despite its bulk. Each action feels deliberate and unavoidable, as though Dialga has already observed the battle's outcome and is simply executing predetermined moves. This creates psychological pressure on opponents who might feel they're fighting against inevitability itself. Smart trainers recognize this as intimidation rather than genuine precognition, but the effect on morale persists regardless of rational understanding. The question of free will becomes philosophically complex when considering Dialga's potential omniscience. If Dialga can observe all timeline branches, does human choice matter? Are decisions predetermined, or does the act of choosing create new timeline branches Dialga must then accommodate? This philosophical territory goes beyond typical Pokémon lore, touching on questions that have occupied philosophers for millennia. Dialga's existence forces confrontation with these questions in a context where temporal manipulation is confirmed reality rather than theoretical speculation. Some scientists within the Pokémon world study temporal phenomena, hoping to understand Dialga's mechanics. Research focuses on temporal anomalies, points where time flows irregularly or events occur out of sequence. These studies aim to develop technology that could predict or even prevent temporal disasters. However, progress remains limited. Time manipulation requires energy scales beyond current technological capabilities, and attempting to interfere with temporal flow without Dialga-level power risks catastrophic consequences. If you're still awake halfway through, maybe subscribe before you drift off, and tell me what time it is where you're watching from. The relationship between Dialga and dimensional stability extends beyond simple time management into reality maintenance. Without consistent temporal flow, cause and effect relationships collapse. Objects could appear before their creation, effects could precede causes, and entropy could reverse randomly. Dialga prevents these impossibilities through constant vigilance, monitoring countless timeline branches and collapsing paradoxes before they propagate beyond manageable scales. Training Dialga, for the rare trainers who achieve this, requires understanding that conventional bonding methods don't apply. Dialga doesn't need food, doesn't tire in typical ways, and doesn't respond to affection as social creatures do. Instead, respect and intellectual stimulation seem to foster whatever serves as a bond for such a being. Trainers report that Dialga responds to challenges that require strategic thinking, appreciating partners who can plan multiple moves ahead and adapt to changing circumstances. The existential loneliness of Dialga's existence becomes apparent when considering its role. It cannot form permanent relationships because it exists across all time simultaneously. Every bond forms and ends from Dialga's perspective in the same eternal moment. Past, present, and future loves, losses, conflicts, and resolutions blur into a single, overwhelming experience. This might explain Dialga's cold, mechanical demeanor. Emotional distance becomes survival strategy when every emotion exists forever. Competitive usage of Dialga focuses on its unique combination of bulk, power, and typing. Access to Dragon-type stab attacks gives it late-game sweeping potential, while Steel typing provides defensive utility and key resistances. Move pool depth allows multiple builds, from defensive walls to special attackers to mixed threats. This versatility keeps Dialga relevant across metagame shifts, adapting to new threats while maintaining core strengths. The symbolism of Dialga extends beyond in-universe mythology into metatextual commentary on gaming and time. Players experience games through temporal progression, saving states, and reloading to reverse consequences. In this context, Dialga represents the game's temporal framework itself, the underlying system that allows saving, loading, and experiencing narratives across multiple playthroughs. This reading adds layer of meaning to Dialga's role, transforming it from character to commentary on player agency and temporal manipulation. The fusion of Dialga with Palkia, hinted at in some advanced lore, would theoretically create a being controlling both time and space simultaneously. This hypothetical entity would possess reality-warping power approaching Arceus itself. The fact that such fusion apparently doesn't occur naturally suggests either it's impossible or both. Dialga and Palkia actively prevent it, recognizing that unified control over space-time dimensions would effectively make them deific beyond current status. Dialga's influence on Sinnoh's climate and geology is subtle but measurable. Temporal flow variations create zones where weathering occurs faster or slower than surrounding areas. Some mountain faces show erosion patterns inconsistent with their age. Others appear younger than geological dating suggests. These anomalies cluster near locations associated with Dialga's mythology, suggesting its presence or past presence affects not just current time, but also historical progression. Artistic representations of Dialga emphasize its majesty and alienness equally. Portraits show it against backgrounds of swirling clockwork or fractal temporal patterns. The best artwork captures the paradox of its existence, simultaneously ancient and newborn, static and flowing, comprehensible and utterly beyond human understanding. These visual interpretations help convey concepts that language struggles to express, using imagery to communicate Dialga's fundamental otherness. The question of whether multiple Dialga exist across different timelines creates entertaining paradoxes. If each timeline has its own Dialga, do they coordinate to prevent contradictions, or does a single Dialga manage all timelines simultaneously? The latter seems more consistent with established lore, but raises questions about Dialga's capacity and attention span. Managing infinite timeline branches would require infinite processing capability, suggesting Dialga's consciousness operates on scales incomprehensible to finite minds. In the games, catching Dialga often represents a late-game achievement, confirming player skill and progression. The Master Ball provided earlier in the game tempts players to use it on Dialga, though some save it for even rarer encounters. This decision point creates gameplay tension, balancing guaranteed capture against potential future opportunities. The choice mirrors themes of time and consequence that define Dialga's mythology. The music associated with Dialga combines orchestral grandeur with mechanical elements, creating soundscapes that feel both organic and constructed. Percussion mimics clockwork mechanisms while string sections provide emotional weight. The result is music that sounds timeless, equally suited to ancient temples and futuristic laboratories. This auditory design reinforces Dialga's nature as a being existing across temporal periods simultaneously. Dialga's relationship with human concepts of mortality and legacy adds philosophical depth. If Dialga observes all time simultaneously, it witnesses every birth and death, every triumph and tragedy, all human stories from beginning to end in a single eternal moment. This perspective would make concepts like legacy and memory meaningless. Everything that will be remembered already is remembered from Dialga's perspective, yet it continues maintaining temporal flow, ensuring those moments occur in proper sequence for the beings experiencing them linearly. The responsibility of managing time, of ensuring causality remains consistent and paradoxes don't collapse reality, is burden beyond comprehension. Dialga carries this weight eternally, never resting, because time never rests. Every moment requires attention, every timeline branch needs monitoring, every potential paradox demands a resolution. The scope of this task makes Dialga simultaneously the most powerful and most constrained legendary in existence. It possesses ultimate authority over time, but cannot escape the responsibility that authority demands. As dawn breaks across Sinnoh, time continues its relentless forward march. Seconds accumulate into minutes, minutes into hours. The eternal progression that defines existence for beings trapped in linear progression. And somewhere beyond normal reality, in a dimension where past and future lose meaning, Dialga observes. It sees the timeline branch and collapse, watches possibilities become actualities, monitors causality to prevent paradox. The temporal guardian, eternal and exhausted, maintains its vigil. Because time must flow, because cause must precede effect, because without Dialga's constant attention, reality itself would unravel into impossible chaos. The seconds pass, the moments accumulate, and Dialga endures. The concept of space as a manipulable dimension finds its embodiment in Palkia, a legendary Pokémon whose existence operates on spatial principles as fundamental as Dialga's temporal nature. Where Dialga manages when events occur, Palkia controls those where they happen, maintaining the integrity of three-dimensional space while preventing the impossible overlaps and paradoxes that would result from unmanaged spatial distortions. Understanding Palkia requires grasping space not as emptiness, but as a structured dimension that can be bent, folded, and reconfigured. The mythology presents Palkia as the creator and guardian of space, but as with Dialga, this description understates the relationship. Palkia doesn't merely control space, it is space given consciousness and form. The distance between objects, the volume of regions, the very concept of here versus there, all exist as expressions of Palkia's being extended across three dimensions. When Palkia shifts position, space itself restructures to accommodate the movement. When it concentrates, spatial density increases around it. The connection is fundamental and absolute. Sinnoh's creation myths describe Palkia being born simultaneously with Dialga, the spatial dimension manifesting as conscious entity at the same moment a temporal dimension gained awareness. This parallelism emphasizes their interdependence. Space without time is frozen, meaningless expanse. Time without space has no stage on which to play out. Together, they create the four-dimensional framework that allows existence itself. Their rivalry, depicted in various media, stems not from incompatibility, but from the tension inherent in managing related but distinct fundamental forces. Physically, Palkia's design incorporates elements suggesting flowing water and dimensional distortion. The pearls adorning its shoulders symbolize precious rare materials while evoking the smooth perfection of geometric forms. The overall silhouette suggests both dragon and some impossible geometric shape, organic curves meeting angular precision. The water typing reflects space's fluid nature, its ability to flow and reshape while maintaining underlying structure. The dragon typing emphasizes power and primordial origins, connecting Palkia to ancient forces predating current reality. The pearl embedded in Palkia's shoulder resonates with spatial energy, glowing when Palkia actively manipulates dimensional barriers. This pearl isn't mere decoration, but a focusing lens through which Palkia channels spatial warping abilities. The glow intensifies when Palkia performs feats requiring extreme spatial manipulation, dimming during periods of rest when space flows naturally without requiring intervention. Some theorists propose the pearl is a physical anchor point, the location where Palkia's consciousness interfaces most strongly with normal three-dimensional reality. Palkia's signature move, Spatial Rend, tears three-dimensional space itself, creating ruptures that deal damage while potentially disrupting the battlefield's spatial integrity. The high critical hit ratio reflects space's fragility when subjected to direct assault. Unlike matter, which can absorb and distribute impact, space warps or tears under stress. Spatial rend exploits this vulnerability, targeting not the opponent's body, but the space they occupy, forcing them to experience damage as their position becomes temporarily incoherent. The lore describes Palkia residing in a parallel dimension where spatial rules differ from normal reality. This dimension, often called the spatial rift, exists adjacent to ordinary space, but separated by dimensional barriers that prevent casual crossing. From this position, Palkia monitors spatial stability across the main dimension, identifying points where space warps dangerously or threatens to collapse into singularity. Intervention at these points restores spatial normalcy, ensuring the universe maintains geometric consistency. Encountering Palkia requires reaching the Spear Pillar, the same location where Dialga can be found, though in alternate realities or timelines. This shared sacred space emphasizes the parallel nature of their roles. The Spear Pillar exists at a point where dimensional barriers thin naturally, making it ideal for summoning or encountering beings that normally reside beyond standard reality. Team Galactic's plan to exploit this location demonstrates human ambition to access powers beyond their comprehension or control. The battle against Palkia carries spatial implications that parallel the temporal concerns of fighting Dialga. Disrupting Palkia's concentration while it maintains spatial coherence could create dimensional collapses, regions where space folds in on itself or expands infinitely. The game's narrative positions this battle as necessary intervention, but the underlying risk makes every attack potentially catastrophic. Fighting Palkia is fighting space itself, risking dimensional integrity for personal triumph. Palkia's typing, water and dragon, creates different competitive dynamics than Dialga's combination. Water typing provides useful resistances and access to powerful special attacks, while dragon typing offers late-game sweeping potential. This combination makes Palkia effective as a special attacker with bulk sufficient to survive initial exchanges. The typing also creates interesting weaknesses, with dragon-type attacks and certain fairy-type moves posing serious threats that require careful team building to address. In terms of stats, Palkia emphasizes special attack and speed, creating a profile suited for fast, powerful strikes rather than prolonged exchanges. This distribution reflects the explosive nature of spatial manipulation, moments of intense reality warping, followed by periods where space stabilizes naturally. High special attack allows Palkia to eliminate threats quickly, while adequate speed ensures it acts before many opponents. Bulk is sufficient to avoid being one-shot by most attacks, but not enough to function as a dedicated wall. The question of whether Palkia perceives space differently than three-dimensional beings adds layers to its characterization. If Palkia experiences all spatial points simultaneously, distance becomes a meaningless concept. Every location exists in its awareness equally, creating omnipresent consciousness that sees and knows everywhere at once. Alternatively, if Palkia experiences space normally despite controlling it, then it shares humanity's limitation of sequential spatial awareness while possessing power to alter what it perceives. Either interpretation influences how we understand Palkia's behavior and motivations. Cultural impact within Sinnoh manifests in spatial traditions and architectural choices. Buildings are constructed with specific geometric principles, supposedly to harmonize with spatial flow and avoid creating disruptions Palkia would need to correct. Certain areas are designated as sacred spaces where spatial density feels heavier, locations where Palkia's influence is believed strongest. These cultural practices, whether based on genuine spatial science or mere superstition, demonstrate how legendary Pokémon shape regional development through their mythological presence. The relationship between Palkia and Hoopa, another space-manipulating legendary, creates interesting theoretical questions. Hoopa creates portals connecting distant locations, effectively bypassing spatial distance. Does this ability require Palkia's permission, or does Hoopa operate through mechanisms outside Palkia's authority? Some theories suggest Hoopa's portals are actually controlled tiers in the spatial fabric that Palkia must then repair, making Hoopa's actions parasitic on Palkia's maintenance work. Others propose Hoopa and Palkia coordinate unconsciously, Hoopa's portals automatically healing because Palkia recognizes them as temporary and intentional rather than dangerous spatial ruptures. Palkia's interactions with humanity are rare and usually brief, perhaps recognizing that exposing mortal minds to direct spatial manipulation could cause permanent psychological damage. Trainers who've captured Palkia report unusual spatial awareness, instinctively knowing distances and directions with uncanny precision. Some describe dreams where they exist in multiple places simultaneously or experience space as fluid rather than fixed. These effects suggest bonding with Palkia grants limited access to its spatial perception, fundamentally altering how affected trainers conceptualize reality. The concept of legendary Pokémon existing across all space simultaneously complicates standard biological questions. If Palkia is omnipresent, does it have a true physical form, or is the dragon-like body merely a projection, a way of making itself comprehensible to beings that perceive space normally? Some interpretations suggest Palkia's visible form is essentially an avatar, a localized concentration of spatial energy shaped to interact with this three-dimensional reality. The true Palkia would be the spatial dimension itself, incomprehensibly vast and utterly alien. Visually, Palkia's design incorporates flowing lines and curves suggesting movement through space. The armor plating resembles both scales and geometric panels, organic and constructed simultaneously. The shoulder pearls catch light in ways that create rainbow refractions, visual representations of how space can bend light around massive objects. The overall aesthetic communicates both power and grace, a being comfortable moving through dimensions that would tear apart ordinary creatures. The sound Palkia produces is described as resembling rushing water mixed with crystalline tones, as though space itself is singing. This audio design reinforces the water typing while creating otherworldly atmosphere appropriate for a dimensional guardian. Hearing Palkia's cry reportedly causes temporary spatial disorientation, a sensation of distances expanding and contracting as listeners briefly perceive space as Palkia does. Whether this effect is psychologically induced or represents genuine spatial distortion remains debated among researchers. In battle, Palkia moves with fluid grace that makes its bulk seem irrelevant. Attacks appear to originate from multiple angles simultaneously, as though Palkia can strike from several spatial positions at once. This creates tactical complexity for opponents who cannot predict attack vectors using standard spatial reasoning. Smart trainers recognize this as skilled maneuvering rather than true teleportation, but the effect on battle flow remains significant regardless of the underlying mechanism. The philosophical questions raised by spatial manipulation mirror those surrounding temporal control, but focus on different concerns. If space can be folded and restructured, what does location even mean? Is the concept of distance fundamental or arbitrary? Can two objects occupy the same space if that space is manipulated correctly? Palkia's existence forces confrontation with these questions in a context where spatial warping is confirmed capability rather than theoretical speculation. Scientists studying spatial phenomena hope to understand Palkia's mechanics and potentially develop technology to safely manipulate space on limited scales. Applications could include instant transportation, dimensional storage, or even pocket dimensions for various uses. However, research progress remains minimal. Spatial manipulation requires energy expenditures beyond current technological capabilities, and attempting to warp space without Palkia-level control risks catastrophic dimensional collapse. The relationship between Palkia and dimensional stability parallels Dialga's role in temporal maintenance. Without consistent spatial structure, objects could occupy impossible positions, volumes could overlap creating singularities, and distances could fluctuate randomly. Palkia prevents these impossibilities through constant monitoring, observing spatial tensions, and smoothing distortions before they propagate beyond manageable scales. This role requires eternal vigilance, as space must remain geometrically consistent for reality to function. Training Palkia requires the understanding that conventional methods based on three-dimensional thinking don't fully apply. Palkia doesn't move through space the way ordinary Pokémon do, so standard positioning strategies become complicated. Instead, trainers must develop spatial intuition, learning to predict how Palkia will manipulate battlefield geometry to create advantages. This requires mental flexibility and willingness to abandon assumptions about how space should behave. Successful Palkia trainers often describe their battling style as thinking in 4 dimensions, though they struggle to articulate what this actually means. The existential isolation of Palkia's existence parallels Dialga's temporal loneliness. If Palkia exists across all space simultaneously, it cannot truly occupy a single location. Every position is equally where Palkia is, creating omnipresence that prevents the formation of stable location-based relationships. This might explain Palkia's cool, distant demeanor. Emotional attachments require spatial proximity, but Palkia is always everywhere, and therefore nowhere, making genuine connection difficult if not impossible. Competitive usage of Palkia focuses on its offensive presence and unique typing. Water Dragon provides excellent offensive coverage, with few Pokémon resisting both types effectively. Access to Spatial Rend gives Palkia a powerful, high critical hit stab move that can swing battles through lucky critical hits. Move pool depth allows builds ranging from fast special attackers to bulky mixed threats to specialized wall breakers. This versatility keeps Palkia competitively relevant across metagame shifts. The symbolism of Palkia extends beyond internal mythology into metatextual commentary on gaming and space. Video games create virtual spaces for players to inhabit, digital dimensions that follow designed spatial rules. In this context, Palkia represents the game engine itself, the underlying system that renders environments and manages object positions. This reading transforms Palkia from character into commentary on the nature of virtual space and how games create convincing illusions of spatial reality. The theoretical fusion of Palkia with Dialga would create a being controlling both space and time simultaneously, effectively achieving mastery over the entire 4-dimensional space-time continuum. Such an entity would possess reality warping capabilities approaching Arceus, able to restructure causality itself by manipulating both where and when events occur. The fact that this fusion apparently doesn't happen naturally suggests either it's impossible due to fundamental incompatibility or both legendaries actively prevent it, recognizing that unified space-time control would elevate them beyond their intended roles. Palkia's influence on Sinnoh's geography appears in subtle spatial anomalies. Certain valleys seem dimensionally expanded, appearing larger inside than external measurements suggest. Some mountain peaks exhibit impossible geometries, paths that loop back on themselves, or distances that don't add up correctly. These irregularities cluster near sites associated with Palkia's mythology, suggesting its presence or historical presence affects not just current space, but also the spatial structure of reality itself. Artistic representations of Palkia emphasize its fluid grace and dimensional nature. Portraits show it against backgrounds of folded space or geometric patterns that seem to extend into impossible dimensions. The best artwork captures the contradiction of its existence, simultaneously physical and abstract, present and omnipresent, comprehensible and utterly beyond human understanding. These visual interpretations communicate concepts that language cannot adequately express, using imagery to convey Palkia's fundamental alienness. The question of whether multiple Palkia exist across parallel dimensions creates entertaining paradoxes similar to those surrounding Dialga. If each dimension has its own Palkia, do they coordinate to maintain cross-dimensional spatial consistency, or does a single Palkia manage all dimensions simultaneously? The latter aligns better with established lore, but suggests processing capabilities that boggle the mind. Managing infinite dimensional variations would require consciousness operating on scales incomprehensible to beings limited to single dimensions. Catching Palkia represents significant achievement, demonstrating player skill and progression through challenging content. The decision of whether to use the Master Ball, often saved from earlier in the game, creates tension between guaranteed capture and preserving the item for potential future use. This choice mirrors themes of space and scarcity that define Palkia's mythology, limited resources requiring strategic allocation. The music associated with Palkia combines flowing melodies with crystalline tones, creating soundscapes that feel simultaneously fluid and structured. This auditory design mirrors Palkia's nature as a being maintaining spatial order while allowing flexibility within that structure. The result is music that feels both organic and mathematical, emotional and geometric, perfectly capturing the duality of Palkia's existence. Palkia's relationship with concepts of territory and personal space adds interesting dimension. If Palkia exists across all space, does it have territory in any meaningful sense? Every location could be considered Palkia's domain, or alternatively, no location belongs to it, because claiming territory requires excluding others from specific spaces. This paradox might explain why Palkia rarely manifests in the main dimension. Omnipresence makes the concept of appearing somewhere meaningless when you're already everywhere. The responsibility of maintaining spatial integrity, ensuring geometric consistency, and preventing dimensional collapse is burden comparable to Dialga's temporal duties. Palkia monitors every cubic meter of space constantly, identifying distortions and smoothing irregularities. The scope of this task makes Palkia simultaneously supremely powerful and eternally constrained. It possesses ultimate authority over space, but cannot escape the responsibility that authority demands. As night settles across Sinnoh once more, space continues its silent structure, 3 dimensions extending infinitely in all directions, providing the stage where reality unfolds. And somewhere beyond normal geometry, in a dimension where distance loses meaning, Palkia observes. It sees spatial tensions build and release, watches dimensions fold and unfold, monitors geometry to prevent collapse. The spatial guardian, omnipresent yet isolated, maintains its vigil. because space must hold its structure, because distance must remain consistent, because without Palkia's constant attention, reality would fold into impossible configurations. The dimensions extend, the distances remain stable, and Palkia endures. The concept of distortion finds its ultimate expression in Giratina, a legendary Pokémon exiled to the distortion world for reasons ancient mythology only hints at. Where Dialga maintains temporal flow and Palkia preserves spatial structure, Giratina represents antimatter and distortion, the shadow cast by reality itself. Understanding Giratina requires grappling with concepts of reversal, exile, and the necessary existence of darkness to define light. The mythology surrounding Giratina describes it as violent and destructive, characteristics that led Arceus to banish it to the distortion world. But this simple narrative of punishment oversimplifies a more complex relationship. Giratina doesn't merely oppose order, it represents the distortion necessary for order to have meaning. Without chaos to contrast against, structure becomes invisible. Without distortion to push against, spatial and temporal stability would lack definition. Giratina serves as cosmic counterweight, the shadow that gives light its value. The distortion world itself exists as dimension, where physics operates in reverse or simply differently than normal reality. Gravity points in random directions, objects float without support, and distances refuse to remain consistent. This environment perfectly suits a being embodying distortion. Giratina moves through impossible spaces with perfect comfort, navigating contradictory geometries that would disorient creatures adapted to standard dimensional rules. For Giratina, the distortion world isn't punishment, but natural habitat, a space where its very existence doesn't threaten baseline reality. Physically, Giratina manifests in two forms: the serpentine altered form adapted to normal dimensions, and the hexapedal origin form that represents its true appearance within the distortion world. This duality reflects its nature as a being existing between realities, changing shape based on which dimension it currently inhabits. The altered form emphasizes length and flexibility, a dragon that can coil through standard three-dimensional space. The origin form reveals a more alien configuration, multiple legs, and wing-like appendages suggesting movement through dimensions beyond normal geometry. The color scheme of red, black, and gold creates ominous aesthetic that distinguishes Giratina from its creation trio counterparts. Red suggests danger and passion, black represents void and antimatter, gold hints at the divine nature inherited from Arceus. The combination creates visual identity that communicates both threat and majesty, a being that demands respect through power rather than benevolence. The gold accents specifically recall Arceus's coloring, subtly reinforcing the parent-child relationship despite the exile. Giratina's signature move, Shadow Force, allows it to vanish into the distortion world briefly before emerging to attack from an unexpected angle. This technique demonstrates Giratina's unique ability to phase between dimensions at will, using its exile dimension as tactical advantage. The move forces opponents to waste a turn while Giratina disappears, creating pressure and momentum shifts that skilled trainers exploit. Mechanically, Shadow Force represents the constant threat that distortion poses to stability, able to emerge from nowhere to disrupt established patterns. The lore presents conflicting accounts of why Arceus exiled Giratina. Some texts describe violence and destruction, portraying Giratina as a rampaging force that needed containment. Others suggest the exile was protective rather than punitive, recognizing that Giratina's antimatter nature made it dangerous to normal reality despite lacking malicious intent. A third interpretation proposes the exile was mutually agreed upon. Giratina, understanding its role, required separation and accepting banishment as necessary for universal balance. The relationship between Giratina and the other Creation Trio members is tense, but not actively hostile. They represent opposing principles, Dialga and Palkia maintaining order, while Giratina embodies distortion. Yet this opposition creates balance rather than conflict. Order pushed to an extreme becomes stagnation, but chaos without boundaries produces meaningless noise. The trio's existence as a triad ensures neither order nor chaos dominates absolutely, maintaining dynamic equilibrium that allows growth and change within stable framework. Encountering Giratina requires deliberate choice in most games. Players must actively seek the Distortion World entrance and navigate its reality-defying geography to reach Giratina's chamber. This requirement ensures that encountering the banished legendary feels significant, that players understand they're entering a being's sanctioned exile rather than stumbling upon a random encounter. The journey through twisted geometry prepares trainers mentally for facing a Pokémon that rejects standard reality. The battle against Giratina occurs in one of the most visually striking environments in Pokémon games. The Distortion World's floating platforms and reversed gravity create battleground unlike any other, emphasizing how different Giratina's existence is from normal Pokémon. Fighting in this environment requires adaptation, accepting that usual battlefield assumptions don't apply. This mechanical representation of thematic concepts demonstrates how gameplay can reinforce narrative elements effectively. Giratina's typing, Ghost and Dragon, creates defensive profile quite different from its Creation Trio counterparts. Ghost typing provides useful immunities and then offensive options while creating specific vulnerabilities that require careful management. Dragon typing offers late-game relevance and powerful stab attacks. The combination produces a Pokémon effective at pressuring opponents through mixed attacking angles while maintaining enough bulk to survive retaliation. In terms of stats, Giratina's altered form emphasizes defense and HP, creating a bulky physical wall that can absorb hits while wearing down opponents. The origin form redistributes these stats toward offense, increasing attack power while reducing defensive capabilities. This transformation option gives Giratina flexibility, adapting to team needs by switching between forms. The Griseous Orb that enables origin form outside the Distortion World becomes a valuable item that defines Giratina's competitive role. The question of whether Giratina resents its exile or accepts it willingly influences how we interpret its behavior. Resentful Giratina would constantly seek escape, viewing every encounter as potential opportunity to return to normal reality permanently. Accepting Giratina would understand its role in cosmic balance, maintaining the Distortion World, because reality needs a counterpoint to order. The games leave this question deliberately unanswered, allowing players to project their own interpretations onto an inherently enigmatic character. Cultural impact in Sinnoh manifests differently than with other legendaries. Giratina rarely appears in celebratory contexts, its exile and distortion associations making it uncomfortable subject for festivals or art. Instead, it features in cautionary tales, stories warning against excessive violence or chaos. These narratives frame Giratina as example of power gone wrong, though more thoughtful interpretations recognize the necessity of its role despite the troubling aspects. The relationship between Giratina and Darkrai presents interesting thematic parallels. Both are powerful beings associated with darkness and nightmares. Both suffer from negative reputations based on their natures rather than intentional malice. The key difference is Giratina's exile is officially sanctioned by Arceus, while Darkrai simply exists as natural Pokémon whose abilities cause unintended suffering. This distinction between punishment and biology adds nuance to discussions of responsibility and justice within legendary Pokémon mythology. Giratina's interactions with humanity are rare and often negative, perhaps because its distortion aura makes proximity but uncomfortable for beings adapted to normal reality. Trainers who capture Giratina report strange experiences, dreams of inverted worlds, momentary perceptions of impossible geometries, and persistent sense that reality is somehow fragile or provisional. These effects suggest bonding with Giratina grants limited access to its distorted perception, fundamentally altering how affected trainers experience space and structure. The concept of antimatter in relation to Giratina goes beyond simple physical opposition to regular matter. Giratina represents conceptual antimatter, the reversed or inverted forms of existence, causality, and structure. Where normal reality proceeds from cause to effect, Giratina exists in space where effects might precede causes or occur simultaneously. This fundamental reversal makes Giratina's very existence threatening to baseline reality, justifying exile regardless of intentionality or moral culpability. Visually, Giratina's design incorporates elements suggesting both dragon and specter, organic and impossible. The altered forms, flowing ribbons, and elongated body create ghostly impression, while the origin forms, angular construction, and multiple appendages suggest alien geometry. Both forms share the distinctive red and black coloring with gold accents, maintaining visual identity across transformations. The design successfully conveys otherworldliness, creating Pokémon that clearly doesn't belong in normal reality. The sound Giratina produces is described as reverberating across multiple frequencies simultaneously, creating discordant harmonies that disorient listeners. This audio design reinforces the distortion theme while creating unsettling atmosphere appropriate for a banished legendary. Hearing Giratina's cry reportedly causes brief spatial disorientation, as though listeners momentarily experienced reversed or contradictory gravity. Whether this represents genuine distortion effect or psychological response to disturbing sounds remains uncertain. In battle, Giratina's movements appear to violate physics, gliding without apparent propulsion or changing direction without appropriate momentum shifts. These impossible motions reflect its existence as a being that rejects standard physical laws. Opponents struggle to predict Giratina's actions because their intuitive understanding of how creatures should move doesn't apply. This creates tactical advantage that reinforces thematic elements through its mechanical benefits. The philosophical questions raised by Giratina's existence center on the necessity of darkness and chaos. Can order exist without disorder to define it? Does stability require instability as counterpoint? Is chaos inherently destructive, or can it serve constructive purposes by preventing stagnation? Giratina embodies these questions, existing as living proof that reality requires both structure and distortion to function properly. Its exile represents an attempt to manage rather than eliminate chaos, recognizing that complete suppression would be as dangerous as unlimited expression. Scientists studying dimensional phenomena often focus on the distortion world, attempting to understand its reversed physics and potential applications. Hypothetical technologies based on distortion principles could enable faster-than-light travel, dimensional storage, or even temporary reality manipulation. However, research progress is severely limited by inability to safely access or survive extended periods within the distortion world. The few documented expeditions resulted in psychological trauma and spatial disorientation that persisted long after return to normal reality. The relationship between Giratina and dimensional stability is paradoxically both threatening and essential. Giratina's mere existence creates distortions that weaken the barriers between dimensions, potentially allowing dangerous entities or energies to leak into normal reality. Yet Giratina also serves as pressure valve, containing and embodying distortion in ways that prevent it from manifesting randomly throughout regular space. Without Giratina to anchor and contain it, distortion might appear unpredictably, creating localized zones of reversed physics or antimatter eruptions. Training Giratina requires trainers to abandon assumptions about how Pokémon should behave and adapt to constant unpredictability. Giratina doesn't respond to conventional training methods based on repetition and reward because its distortion nature makes causality unreliable. Actions might not produce expected outcomes, rewards might fail to reinforce behaviors, and punishment might achieve opposite of intended results. Instead, successful Giratina trainers develop intuitive connection based on acceptance rather than control, partnering with distortion rather than attempting to suppress it. The existential loneliness of Giratina's existence is perhaps the most profound among legendary Pokémon. Exiled from normal reality, unable to safely interact with most other beings, Giratina exists in enforced isolation, more complete than even Dialga or Palkia experience. Where they at least maintain their roles within reality's structure, Giratina is explicitly separated, marked as too dangerous or too different for inclusion. This exile could foster resentment and genuine destructiveness, creating self-fulfilling prophecy where punishment for supposed violence leads to actual violence born from isolation and rejection. Competitive usage of Giratina focuses on its bulk and unique defensive typing. Altered Form functions as physical wall with enough attack power to threaten opponents, while Origin Form serves as powerful mixed attacker with reduced but still substantial bulk. The ability to switch between forms by adding or removing the Griseous Orb creates strategic flexibility. Move Pool access to Shadow Force provides powerful Ghost Stab with built-in protection turn, while Dragon-type attacks offer late-game cleaning potential. The symbolism of Giratina extends beyond internal lore into metatextual commentary on game design and player experience. Games create virtual realities with specific rules, but breaking or exploiting those rules often provides enjoyment. Speedrunners use glitches to bypass intended progression. Casual players find exploits that trivialize challenges, and modders create distorted versions of official content. Giratina represents this player relationship with games, the desire to exist outside intended boundaries and explore what happens when rules break down. The question of whether Giratina could return from exile permanently remains theoretically open, but practically unlikely. Arceus presumably possesses power to lift the banishment, but doing so might require Giratina demonstrating change that its fundamental nature prevents. If Giratina is distortion embodied, asking it to become ordered is asking it to stop being itself. This catch-22 suggests the exile is effectively permanent, unless Arceus develops a different understanding of how Giratina's role serves universal balance. Giratina's influence on Sinnoh's mythology manifests in stories about the importance of accepting darkness and chaos as necessary components of existence. Unlike cultures that demonize shadow absolutely, Sinnoh's traditions recognize that attempts to eliminate chaos entirely lead to stagnation and brittleness. These philosophical insights, attributed to understanding Giratina's role, demonstrate how legendary Pokémon can inspire wisdom even when not directly encountered or worshipped. Artistic representations of Giratina emphasize its alien nature an ominous presence. Portraits show it against backgrounds of impossible architecture or reversed physics visualizations. The best artwork captures both its threatening aspect and underlying melancholy, conveying that Giratina's existence is as much tragic as menacing. These visual interpretations help communicate emotional complexity that pure text descriptions might miss. The music associated with Giratina combines discordant elements with haunting melodies, creating soundscapes that feel simultaneously beautiful and unsettling. This mirrors Giratina's nature as a being that is dangerous but necessary, frightening but fascinating. The Distortion World's theme specifically uses reversed or distorted versions of familiar musical motifs, audio representation of how that dimension inverts normal reality. As reality continues its structured existence, order maintaining stability across space and time, somewhere beyond dimensional barriers, the Distortion World churns in constant chaos. And within that impossible realm, Giratina drifts through reversed gravity and contradictory geometries, its exile continuing indefinitely. The banished legendary, simultaneously prisoner and guardian, maintains its vigil over distortion itself, because chaos must exist somewhere, because antimatter requires containment, because without Giratina anchoring it, distortion would leak into normal reality and unmake the carefully maintained order that allows existence to persist. The shadows deepen, the geometries reverse, and Giratina endures its necessary exile. The concept of the moon as a source of gentle power finds perfect embodiment in Cresselia, a legendary Pokémon whose existence revolves around dreams, healing, and the soft light that guides travelers through darkness. Where other legendaries command storms or reshape continents, Cresselia operates on smaller, more intimate scale, entering dreams to soothe nightmares and spreading calm through its mere presence. Understanding Cresselia requires appreciating that power doesn't always manifest as destruction, that gentleness can be just as legendary as might. The mythology surrounding Cresselia presents it as a counterpoint to Darkrai, whose nightmares it specifically counters and soothes. This opposition isn't active warfare, but balanced relationship, darkness and light existing in eternal cycle. Darkrai brings nightmares unintentionally, its nature causing suffering despite lacking malicious intent. Cresselia follows, mending the psychological damage and restoring peaceful sleep. Together they represent the full spectrum of night, the frightening and the comforting, the nightmare and the dream. Sinnoh's ancient texts describe Cresselia as a being that chose its role voluntarily, recognizing the necessity of counterbalancing nightmare influence and dedicating itself to healing work. This characterization frames Cresselia as fundamentally compassionate, motivated by desire to reduce suffering rather than duty or external compulsion. The choice to focus on dreams and sleep rather than more dramatic forms of intervention suggests wisdom that recognizes subtle emotional healing is often more valuable than spectacular displays of power. Physically, Cresselia's design incorporates lunar imagery and flowing grace. The crescent moon shapes adorning its body symbolize its connection to night and dreams, while the pink and yellow coloring creates soft, comforting aesthetic far removed from typical legendary color palettes. The ring-like formations suggest halos or aurora, natural light phenomena associated with beauty and wonder. Overall, the design communicates benevolence and serenity, a being whose presence should inspire calm rather than awe or fear. The wings, that trail from Cresselia's body, resemble both bird wings and flowing ribbons, creating ambiguous anatomy that emphasizes grace over biological accuracy. These wings don't beat in typical flight patterns, but seem to flow through air as if swimming through water, defying normal aerodynamics. This impossible movement reinforces Chrysalia's nature as a dream-based entity, a being that operates according to dreamlike logic rather than physical laws. Chrysalia's signature move, Lunar Dance, demonstrates its fundamental philosophy through mechanical expression. The move causes Chrysalia to faint while fully restoring an ally's HP in status conditions, sacrificing itself to heal another. This extreme selflessness mirrors the legends of Chrysalia entering nightmares to guide sufferers back to peaceful sleep, accepting personal risk to provide comfort. No other legendary Pokémon possesses a signature move that requires self-sacrifice, making Lunar Dance a unique expression of Chrysalia's character. The lore describes Chrysalia inhabiting Full Moon Island, a small landmass accessible only by boat and distinguished by perpetual moonlit ambiance even during daytime. This environmental effect, attributed to Chrysalia's presence, creates space that exists slightly outside normal reality, touched by dreams and lunar influence. Visitors to Full Moon Island report feeling unusually relaxed and often experience vivid but pleasant dreams during their stay, effects that persist for days after leaving. Encountering Chryssalia initially requires pursuing it across Sinnoh as it roams freely, appearing randomly on different routes. This behavior mirrors its mythological role as a being that travels wherever nightmares need soothing, responding to distress rather than maintaining a fixed territory. The chase mechanic creates narrative of gradually earning Chrysalia's trust or attention, demonstrating worthiness through persistence and dedication rather than simple strength. The battle against Chryssalia, when it finally occurs, feels different from typical legendary encounters. Its attacks lack the overwhelming power of combat-focused legendaries, instead emphasizing healing, status effects, and defensive techniques. This moveset reinforces Chrysalia's identity as a being designed for nurturing and protection rather than destruction. Defeating it requires wearing down its substantial defenses rather than surviving devastating assaults, a reversal of typical legendary battle dynamics. Chrysalia's typing, Pure Psychic, creates interesting defensive and offensive dynamics. Psychic typing provides useful resistances and powerful special attacks while creating specific vulnerabilities to dark, bug, and ghost types. The lack of secondary typing keeps Chrysalia's identity focused and straightforward, emphasizing psychological and emotional aspects without complicating matters with additional elemental associations. In terms of stats, Chryssalia emphasizes defense and special defense, creating profiles suited for support and long-term survival. HP is substantial, allowing it to absorb multiple hits, while defenses ensure those hits deal minimal damage. Offensive stats are mediocre, discouraging pure attacker builds and encouraging players to utilize Chrysalia's supportive move pool. This distribution perfectly mirrors the lore of a being focused on healing and protection rather than combat. The question of whether Chryssalia experiences the dreams it enters adds fascinating dimension to its mythology. Does it observe dreams from outside, or does it temporarily inhabit them, experiencing the dreamer's emotions and perceptions directly? If Chryssalia fully enters dreams, the cumulative emotional weight from countless nightmares might create profound psychological burden. Yet despite this potential trauma, Chryssalia continues its work, suggesting either remarkable resilience or deep commitment to reducing suffering regardless of personal cost. Cultural impact in Sinnoh manifests through practices related to sleep and dreams. Parents place Chryssalia charms near children's beds, believing the lunar symbols will attract Chrysalia's protective influence. Dream journals are kept carefully, with nightmares recorded to help identify patterns that might indicate Darkrai's presence and subsequent need for Chrysalia's intervention. These practices demonstrate how legendary Pokémon inspire daily rituals that provide comfort even if the legendary itself never appears. The relationship between Cresselia and other dream-associated Pokémon like Munna and Musharna remains officially undefined. Some theories propose they're distant evolutionary relatives, all descending from ancient psychic types that specialized in dream manipulation. Others suggest Cresselia specifically guides or protects these Pokémon, recognizing kinship in their shared connection to sleep and dreams. The lack of official confirmation leaves room for fans, speculation, and personal interpretation. Cresselia's interactions with humanity are described as gentle and brief, appearances that provide comfort without demanding anything in return. Unlike legendaries that test trainers or require proof of worthiness, Cresselia seems to appear based on need rather than merit. Someone suffering from persistent nightmares might glimpse Cresselia at their window, its presence immediately soothing fears. A child afraid of darkness might see soft pink glow in their room, Cresselia standing silent guard until they fall peacefully asleep. These encounters are gifts freely given, no reciprocation expected or desired. The concept of legendary Pokémon providing psychological healing rather than physical power makes Cresselia unique within the pantheon. Most legendaries are defined by their ability to affect the physical world, creating storms, shaping landscapes, or overwhelming opponents in battle. Cresselia's power operates internally, reshaping emotional states and mental experiences. This internal focus makes its interventions harder to measure, but potentially more valuable, as mental health often determines quality of life more than external circumstances. Visually, Cresselia's design achieves rare feat of appearing powerful while remaining entirely non-threatening. The lunar shapes and soft colors create welcoming aesthetic, while the graceful movements and calm expression communicate benevolence. Even in battle, Cresselia maintains this gentle presence, attacking with necessity rather than aggression. The design successfully conveys that this is a being that fights only when required to protect others, preferring peace to conflict in all circumstances. The sound Cresselia produces is described as soft chime-like tones, reminiscent of wind bells or distant music. This audio design reinforces the calming theme while creating memorable auditory signature. Hearing Cresselia's cry reportedly induces immediate relaxation, heart rates slowing, and breathing deepening as listeners respond to the soothing sound. Whether this effect is psychologically conditioned or represents genuine psychic influence remains uncertain. In battle, Cresselia moves with deliberate grace, each action flowing smoothly into the next. The overall impression is one of a being engaging in battle reluctantly, participating in combat only because circumstances require it, but taking no pleasure from the violence. This attitude creates interesting dynamic in competitive contexts, where players must balance Cresselia's defensive capabilities with its inherently passive nature. The philosophical questions raised by Cresselia's existence center on the nature of suffering and intervention. If Cresselia can soothe nightmares, why doesn't it work constantly, ensuring no one experiences bad dreams? The answer might involve capacity limitations, with a single Cresselia unable to reach everyone simultaneously. Alternatively, nightmares might serve important psychological functions, processing trauma and fears in ways that ultimately strengthen mental health. Cresselia might limit interventions to severe cases where nightmares have become pathological, respecting the natural role of bad dreams while preventing them from causing genuine harm. Scientists studying sleep and dreams often reference Cresselia metaphorically, though some genuinely research whether its presence affects REM cycles or neural activity. The few documented cases of Cresselia encounters include neural monitoring data showing unusual brainwave patterns, suggesting its influence operates through measurable physical mechanisms rather than purely spiritual or magical means. If true, understanding these mechanisms could lead to treatments for sleep disorders or PTSD. The relationship between Cresselia and lunar cycles creates interesting astronomical connections. Sightings reportedly increase during full moons when Cresselia's power reaches peak strength. Some interpret this as Cresselia drawing an energy from moonlight itself. Others propose the correlation is purely symbolic or coincidental. Either way, the association with moon phases ties Cresselia firmly to celestial cycles and natural rhythms that have governed life on Earth for billions of years. Training Cresselia requires patient approach focused on trust building rather than traditional battling. Cresselia doesn't respond well to aggressive training methods or pressure to maximize combat effectiveness. Instead, it bonds with trainers who demonstrate kindness, who use their Pokémon thoughtfully, and who prioritize their team's well-being over pure victory. This selective bonding ensures that trainers who successfully partner with Cresselia embody values compatible with its nature. The existential purpose of Cresselia's existence centers on reducing suffering in small, personal ways. Where other legendaries maintain cosmic balance or prevent apocalyptic disasters, Cresselia improves individual lives through gentle interventions. This might seem less significant than preventing time paradoxes or spatial collapse, but the cumulative effect of reducing suffering across millions of individuals creates impact equally valuable in different way. Cresselia reminds us that heroism doesn't always wear dramatic form, that quiet, consistent kindness can be just as legendary as spectacular displays of power. Competitive usage of Cresselia emphasizes its role as a defensive support. High defenses and HP allow it to wall special attackers effectively, while providing healing and status support to teammates. Moves like Moonlight restore Cresselia's HP, making it difficult to knock out through gradual damage. Thunderwave and Toxic spread debilitating status conditions, creating ongoing pressure without requiring high offensive stats. This support-oriented gameplay mirrors Cresselia's lore as a being focused on helping others rather than dominating through personal strength. The symbolism of Cresselia extends beyond healing dreams into broader themes of light persisting through darkness. The moon doesn't generate its own light, but reflects the sun's, providing gentle illumination during night. Similarly, Cresselia doesn't eliminate darkness or nightmares entirely, but provides comfort and hope that makes darkness bearable. This acceptance of darkness as necessary and eternal, combined with determination to make it less frightening, represents mature understanding that comfort matters more than false promises of perfect happiness. The question of whether Cresselia experiences loneliness raises interesting considerations. Its role requires traveling constantly, never staying long enough to form lasting bonds. It enters dreams, but remains fundamentally separate from the dreamers, observer and healer, but never participant. This emotional distance might protect Cresselia from overwhelming empathy, creating necessary boundary between helper and helped. But it also suggests isolation, a being that touches countless lives without truly belonging to any of them. Cresselia's influence on sleep research and dream interpretation within the Pokémon world has been substantial. The mere existence of a legendary Pokémon dedicated to dreams validates studying sleep as legitimate scientific pursuit. Research institutions named after Cresselia focus on understanding sleep disorders, developing therapeutic techniques, and exploring the relationship between dreams and mental health. This cultural impact demonstrates how legendary Pokémon can inspire entire fields of study simply by existing as concrete evidence that certain phenomena matter enough to have legendary guardians. Artistic representations of Cresselia almost universally depict it against night skies, often with full moon as backdrop. The soft colors and graceful poses create images that feel peaceful and reassuring, art designed to comfort rather than impress. Some pieces show Cresselia entering windows, visiting children, or floating above sleeping cities, visual narratives that reinforce its role as nocturnal guardian. These representations help communicate Cresselia's nature to audiences who might not engage with written lore. The music associated with Cresselia combines soft piano melodies with gentle strings, creating soundscapes that evoke moonlit nights and peaceful sleep. The composition of Voivest avoids the dramatic crescendos or intense movements, maintaining consistent, gentle tone throughout. This restraint makes the music perfect for meditation or actual sleep assistance, transforming it from mere game audio into genuinely soothing content with value beyond its original context. As night deepens and the moon rises over Sinnoh, humans and Pokémon across the region settle into sleep. Some drift off peacefully, others struggle with worries or fears, and a few slip into nightmares that twist their rest into suffering. And somewhere above, invisible but present, Cresselia glides through night skies. Its wings trail lunar dust. Its presence soothes the restless. It enters dreams when needed, guides sufferers back toward peace, and continues its eternal vigil. Because nightmares happen, because fear and suffering persist even in sleep, because every being deserves the chance to rest peacefully, and as long as darkness brings fear, Cresselia will bring light. The quiet guardian, watching over dreams, ensuring that even night holds gentleness. The relationship between legendary Pokémon and ancient civilizations reveals patterns of worship, fear, and cooperation that shaped regional development across the Pokémon world. Archaeological evidence suggests early humans didn't simply coexist with legendary Pokémon, but structured entire societies around managing relationships with these powerful beings. Temple ruins scattered across regions show architectural designs intended to honor, placate, or contain legendary influence, with varying success rates that determined whether civilizations thrived or collapsed. In Sinnoh, the most extensive ruins relate to the Creation Trio, massive stone structures aligned with astronomical phenomena and designed to channel or redirect the dimensional energies associated with Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina. These ruins weren't mere places of worship, but functional facilities attempting to stabilize reality itself. Ancient engineers understood, at least partially, the mechanics of space-time distortion and built monuments to minimize dangerous fluctuations. The spear pillar represents the pinnacle of this knowledge, a platform where dimensional barriers thin naturally and human intervention can amplify or suppress this effect. Inscriptions found within these ruins describe catastrophic events, periods when dimensional stability failed and reality briefly fragmented. These accounts align with geological evidence of localized extinction events and mass migrations that occurred without obvious natural causes. The implication is that managing legendary Pokémon relationships was an optional cultural practice, but necessary survival strategy. Civilizations that successfully honored or contained relevant legendaries prospered, while those that failed faced consequences ranging from resource depletion to complete obliteration. The legendary birds of Kanto also feature prominently in ancient ruins, though the architectural approach differs significantly from Sinnoh's dimensional engineering. Kanto's ancients built separate shrines for each bird, positioned geographically to mirror the bird's natural territories. These shrines functioned as focal points where human offerings could be concentrated, creating predictable interaction points that kept the birds' movements consistent and their elemental influences contained. The success of this approach enabled Kanto's ancient civilizations to develop agriculture and infrastructure that modern regions still utilize. Johto's approach to managing Ho-Oh and Lugia centered on cultural practices rather than physical structures. The bell tower and tin tower served as symbolic anchors, places where the legendaries could choose to appear without being summoned or bound. This philosophy of invitation rather than compulsion reflected deep wisdom about legendary Pokémon psychology. Beings of such power cannot be forced into cooperation, but they can be encouraged through respect, offerings, and demonstrated worthiness. The towers still stand millennia later, testament to construction quality and enduring cultural significance. The burned tower's destruction and Ho-Oh's subsequent revival of the legendary beasts represents a pivotal moment in Johto's history. The fire that consumed the original structure killed 3 Pokémon whose identities remain officially unknown, though folklore suggests they were evolved forms that humans particularly valued. Ho-Oh's choice to resurrect them as legendary beasts rather than returning them to their original forms might represent disapproval of human recklessness, a reminder that legendary intervention comes with conditions and consequences that recipients cannot dictate. Regional variations in legendary worship reveal fascinating cultural differences in how humans conceptualize power and divinity. Some regions treat legendaries as gods demanding appeasement, others view them as natural forces requiring management, and still others consider them powerful allies whose cooperation must be earned through mutual respect. These perspectives influence architecture, social structures, and even moral frameworks that define regional identities. Understanding legendary mythology becomes essential to comprehending why different regions developed such distinct cultures despite facing similar environmental challenges. The question of whether legendary Pokémon actively want worship or simply tolerate it varies by individual. Some legends suggest certain legendary Pokémon enjoy attention and actively cultivate relationships with worshippers. Others portray legendaries as indifferent to human opinion, maintaining their roles regardless of cultural recognition. A third category includes legendaries that specifically avoid worship, recognizing that dependency relationships could corrupt or weaken human communities. This diversity suggests legendary Pokémon possess individual personalities and philosophies as complex as human ones. Archaeological discoveries occasionally reveal surprising information that contradicts or expands established mythology. Recently unearthed texts from pre-Sinnoh civilizations describe legendary Pokémon that don't appear in modern Pokédex entries, either extinct species or beings so thoroughly withdrawn from the world that contemporary humans no longer encounter them. These accounts raise uncomfortable questions about whether legendary status provides true immortality or simply extended lifespans measured in geological rather than historical timescales. The relationship between legendary Pokémon and human innovation shows interesting patterns. Regions with strong legendary presences tend to develop specific technologies that respond to challenges posed by those legendaries. Sinnoh's advanced understanding of dimensional mechanics arose from necessity, managing creation trio instabilities that would otherwise prevent stable civilization. Hoenn's meteorological prediction systems evolved to track the weather trio's movements and prepare communities for elemental extremes. This symbiotic relationship between challenge and innovation suggests legendary Pokémon might inadvertently drive human progress by creating problems that require creative solutions. Modern attempts to replicate ancient legendary management techniques meet mixed results. Contemporary researchers possess technological capabilities far beyond ancient engineers, but they lack the cultural context and practical experience that generations of trial and error provided. Ancient civilizations learned through catastrophic failure what worked and what didn't, knowledge preserved in ruins and texts, but difficult to implement without experiential understanding. This creates frustrating situations where researchers can translate ancient instructions but cannot replicate ancient success. The ethics of legendary Pokémon capture represents ongoing philosophical debate within the Pokémon world. Traditional perspectives frame capture as disrespectful at best, sacrilegious at worst, treating beings that maintain cosmic balance or embody natural forces as potential team members. Contemporary views emphasize partnership and mutual benefit, arguing that captured legendary Pokémon willingly cooperate and can achieve more through human partnership than isolation. Both positions contain merit, and the lack of clear answer reflects genuine moral complexity rather than simple right versus wrong dichotomy legendary. Pokémon breeding remains impossible through documented means, reinforcing their unique status. Unlike ordinary Pokémon that can reproduce given proper conditions, legendaries appear to exist as singular entities or small fixed populations that don't increase through normal reproductive processes. This sterility or reproductive isolation raises biological questions about how legendary species maintain genetic diversity or whether genetic concepts even apply to beings that might be constructed from fundamental forces rather than evolved through natural selection. Some theories propose that new legendary Pokémon are created periodically when cosmic conditions align or when specific needs arise. According to these interpretations, legendaries aren't born, but emerge fully formed from concentrations of elemental energy, dimensional distortions, or divine will. This creation model would explain why legendary populations remain stable despite individual deaths, and why similar legendaries appear across different regions without obvious migration or reproduction. The role of legendary Pokémon in maintaining ecosystem health extends beyond obvious examples like weather control or ocean regulation. Subtle influences affect evolutionary pressures that guide the species development, predator-prey relationships that determine population dynamics, and migration patterns that enable genetic diversity. Some ecologists argue that removing legendary Pokémon from their habitats would trigger cascade failures that restructure entire ecosystems, potentially causing extinctions and invasive species explosions that would take centuries to restabilize. Regional ecosystems appear adapted to their resident legendary Pokémon in ways that suggest long coevolution. Species native to Lugia's ocean territories exhibit unusual tolerance for pressure changes and temperature fluctuations, adaptations that would be unnecessary without a guardian regularly disrupting normal aquatic conditions. Similarly, Pokémon near areas frequented by the legendary birds show elemental resistances corresponding to whichever bird visits most regularly. These adaptations indicate that legendary presence actively shapes evolutionary trajectories across geological timescales. The concept of legendary Pokémon as keystone species applies in most cases, with their presence or absence dramatically affecting ecosystem structure and function. However, unlike typical keystone species that occupy specific ecological niches, legendary Pokémon often transcend normal ecological classifications. They don't merely fill roles within existing systems, but fundamentally alter how those systems operate, creating dependencies that didn't exist before their arrival and would collapse immediately upon their departure. Cultural festivals celebrating legendary Pokémon serve multiple functions beyond simple religious observation. These events strengthen community bonds through shared mythology, educate younger generations about regional history, and maintain cultural practices that might otherwise fade. Some festivals include rituals that, whether through genuine legendary influence or psychological placebo effect, produce measurable benefits like improved weather, increased crop yields, or reduced natural disasters. The mechanism matters less than the outcome, as communities thrive regardless of whether divine intervention or careful timing deserves credit. The commercialization of legendary Pokémon imagery raises concerns about respect and appropriateness. Products featuring legendary designs generate substantial revenue, but some argue that trivializing powerful beings through merchandising demonstrates dangerous disrespect. Others counter that widespread legendary imagery keeps mythology alive in secular contexts, ensuring new generations learn about legendaries even if they don't participate in traditional worship. This tension between preservation and profitability reflects broader challenges facing indigenous cultures worldwide. Legendary Pokémon appearances in modern media, including films, television shows, and video games, shape public perception in ways that sometimes contradict traditional mythology. Simplified narratives designed for entertainment value can't always capture the complexity and ambiguity of actual legendary lore. This creates generational gaps where younger people's understanding of legendaries comes primarily from media rather than cultural teachings, potentially diluting or distorting traditional knowledge that took centuries to develop. The phenomenon of legendary sightings, where individuals claim to have encountered specific legendary Pokémon, generates skepticism and legitimate documentation challenges. Many sightings lack credible evidence, reflecting misidentification, deliberate fabrication, or genuine belief in experiences that psychological factors might explain. However, some documented encounters include physical evidence, multiple corroborating witnesses, and environmental effects that confirm genuine legendary presence. Distinguishing authentic encounters from false positives requires careful investigation that respects both scientific rigor and cultural significance. The psychological impact of legendary Pokémon on human development manifests in how children conceptualize power, responsibility, and morality. Growing up with stories of beings that maintain universal balance or protect innocent dreamers provides ethical frameworks that influence adult behavior. Societies with strong legendary traditions often exhibit higher rates of environmental stewardship, community cooperation, and long-term thinking, correlations that might reflect legendary-inspired values becoming cultural norms. Educational systems across regions incorporate legendary mythology into curricula at various levels. Elementary students learn basic legendary identification and simplified origin stories. Secondary education covers ecological roles and cultural significance. University programs offer specialized courses in legendary biology, dimensional mechanics, or comparative mythology. This tiered approach ensures citizens possess baseline legendary knowledge while allowing interested individuals to pursue deeper expertise. The academic study of legendary Pokémon spans multiple disciplines, including biology, physics, anthropology, theology, and philosophy. Each discipline approaches legendaries from different angles, generating insights that other fields might miss. Biologists study legendary anatomy and adaptation. Physicists examine dimensional mechanics and energy manifestations. Anthropologists trace how legendary worship shaped civilizations. Theologians debate whether legendaries qualify as deities or merely powerful creatures, and philosophers explore ethical implications of legendary power and responsibility. This interdisciplinary collaboration produces comprehensive understanding that no single field could achieve alone. Some legendary Pokémon possess abilities that current scientific understanding cannot explain, creating frustrating gaps in knowledge. How Celebi travels through time without creating paradoxes, how Jirachi grants wishes through mechanisms beyond simple psychic influence, or how Mew contains genetic information from species that didn't exist when Mew supposedly first appeared. These mysteries resist conventional explanations and might require paradigm shifts in fundamental scientific frameworks before genuine understanding becomes possible. The potential extinction of legendary Pokémon represents existential threat with implications beyond losing individual species. If legendary roles remain essential for maintaining natural balance or dimensional stability, their disappearance could trigger catastrophes that human technology cannot prevent or contain. This creates moral imperative to protect legendaries not just for their intrinsic value, but for continued survival of life itself. Conservation efforts targeting legendaries therefore receive priority funding and political support that ordinary endangered species rarely obtain. Climate change and habitat destruction affect legendary Pokémon differently than ordinary species. While most legendaries possess power sufficient to adapt to or resist environmental changes, their roles might become more difficult to fulfill in degraded ecosystems. Lugia maintaining ocean balance becomes harder when pollution and acidification already stress marine environments. The legendary birds managing elemental forces face greater challenges when human infrastructure amplifies or disrupts natural weather patterns. These compounding difficulties suggest that protecting legendary Pokémon requires preserving the broader ecosystems they depend on. The relationship between legendary Pokémon and human spirituality varies across cultures, but consistently influences how communities understand existence, purpose, and morality. Some regions develop entire religious systems around legendary worship, complete with priesthoods, sacred texts, and moral codes derived from legendary examples. Other regions incorporate legendaries into existing spiritual frameworks, treating them as manifestations of broader divine forces rather than independent deities. Both approaches provide meaning and ethical guidance that shape individual behavior and social structures. Legendary Pokémon occasionally intervene in human conflicts, though the circumstances that trigger intervention and the form it takes vary unpredictably. Some legends describe legendaries ending wars by demonstrating overwhelming power that makes further fighting pointless. Others tell of legendaries assisting one side against genuine evil, though determining which side deserves support proves complicated when both claim righteous cause. The unpredictability of legendary intervention creates strategic uncertainty that might deter some conflicts while emboldening others who believe divine favor supports their cause. The question of whether legendary Pokémon can be self-killed permanently divides experts. Some argue that true legendaries exist beyond death, their essences reforming eventually even if current physical manifestations are destroyed. Others propose that legendaries are mortal despite their power, capable of permanent death under sufficient circumstances. Evidence supports both positions, creating philosophical uncertainty about whether legendary status implies immortality or merely extraordinary resilience. The practical implications of this question are profound, as conservation strategies differ dramatically depending on whether legendary populations can recover from losses. Legendary Pokémon memory and accumulated knowledge represent invaluable resources for understanding historical events and natural processes. Beings that have existed for centuries or millennia witnessed planetary changes, species extinctions, and human development that no text or archaeological site can fully document. If researchers could establish reliable communication with legendaries and convince them to share their knowledge, countless historical mysteries might be resolved and future challenges anticipated. However, most legendaries remain uncommunicative or communicate through cryptic methods that require interpretation, limiting the practical utility of their vast experience. The impact of legendary Pokémon on artistic expression manifests across every creative medium. Visual artists depict legendaries in styles ranging from traditional religious iconography to contemporary abstract interpretations. Musicians compose pieces inspired by legendary mythology or attempting to capture the emotional essence of specific legendaries. Writers craft stories exploring legendary perspectives or human relationships with these powerful beings. This creative output both preserves legendary mythology and ensures it evolves with each generation, remaining culturally relevant rather than becoming historical curiosity. Legendary Pokémon-inspired architecture extends beyond ancient ruins into modern construction. Buildings designed to harmonize with legendary energy supposedly enjoy greater stability, improved environmental conditions, or enhanced aesthetic appeal. Whether these benefits stem from genuine legendary influence, clever engineering that incorporates sound design principles, or psychological placebo effects, matters less than their impact on quality of life for occupants. Some cities feature skylines deliberately shaped to honor or channel legendary power, creating urban landscapes that serve both practical and spiritual functions. The medical applications of legendary Pokémon powers remain largely theoretical but tantalizing. Cresselia's dream healing suggests potential treatments for PTSD and sleep disorders. Ho-Oh's resurrection abilities might inform tissue regeneration research. Celebi's time manipulation could enable biological age reversal. However, translating legendary abilities into reproducible medical technology requires understanding mechanisms that remain mysterious. Research continues, driven by potential benefits that could revolutionize healthcare if even partially achieved. Agricultural practices influenced by legendary Pokémon knowledge demonstrate practical applications of mythology. Farmers in regions with Weather Trio presence have developed planting schedules and crop selections adapted to elemental fluctuations caused by legendary movements. These techniques, refined across generations, produce higher yields and greater resilience than generic farming methods while working with rather than against legendary influence. This represents successful human adaptation to superhuman forces, a testament to observational skill and willingness to learn from the environment rather than attempting to dominate it. The psychology of encountering legendary Pokémon face-to-face produces documented effects that persist long after the encounter ends. Many individuals report profound perspective shifts, reevaluations of personal priorities, or lasting sense of connection to something greater than themselves. These experiences mirror descriptions of religious or mystical revelations, suggesting that encountering undeniable power and majesty triggers deep psychological responses that transcend simple surprise or fear. Some psychologists specialize in helping people process legendary encounters, recognizing that integration of such experiences requires support. Legendary Pokémon tourism generates substantial economic activity while raising ethical questions about commodifying sacred beings. Regions known for legendary sightings attract visitors hoping to glimpse these powerful creatures, supporting hotels, restaurants, and guide services. However, excessive tourism can disturb legendaries or damage the ecosystems they inhabit, creating tension between economic benefits and conservation needs. Sustainable legendary tourism requires balancing human curiosity against legendary well-being, an ongoing challenge that most popular destinations still struggle to resolve satisfactorily. The training methodologies developed specifically for legendary Pokémon differ fundamentally from standard approaches. Conventional training assumes Pokémon need human guidance to reach their potential, but legendaries typically surpass human understanding in their specialty areas. Training legendary Pokémon becomes less about instruction and more about building mutual respect, establishing communication, and finding ways to work together despite vast power differentials. Successful legendary trainers describe the relationship as partnership between equals rather than master and subordinate, a fundamental shift in perspective that many trainers struggle to accept. Competition formats that allow legendary Pokémon create controversial metagames where power levels spike dramatically. The presence of even a single legendary can dominate entire matches, forcing opponents to build teams specifically to counter legendary threats. Some competitive players embrace this challenge, enjoying high-stakes battles where single moves can determine outcomes. Others argue that legendary dominance reduces strategic diversity and makes competition less accessible to players lacking legendary Pokémon. The debate continues without resolution, as both positions contain valid points that reflect different competitive philosophies. The legal status of legendary Pokémon ownership varies by region and reflects cultural attitudes toward these powerful beings. Some jurisdictions prohibit private legendary ownership entirely, treating them as natural resources or sacred beings that cannot be property. Others allow ownership but impose strict regulations governing care, training, and battle usage. Still others apply standard Pokémon ownership laws, treating legendaries as exceptionally powerful but otherwise normal Pokémon. These legal frameworks influence how researchers, trainers, and conservationists interact with legendaries, creating complex compliance challenges for international organizations. The future of legendary Pokémon research depends on developing non-invasive study methods that provide data without disturbing subjects. Traditional biological research techniques designed for ordinary Pokémon often fail with legendaries, either because the methods cannot safely approach such powerful beings, or because legendaries recognize and evade observation attempts. Remote sensing, passive monitoring, and analysis of environmental effects currently provide most legendary research data, but these methods leave significant questions unanswered. Breakthrough technologies that enable closer study without triggering defensive or evasive responses would revolutionize the field. As dawn breaks once more across the varied regions of the Pokémon world, legendary Pokémon continue their eternal roles. Some rest in hidden sanctuaries, others patrol their territories, and a few drift through dimensions that ordinary beings can never perceive. They are the guardians and the guarded, the protectors and the isolated, the revered and the feared. Their existence shapes reality itself, maintaining balance that allows ordinary life to flourish, and as long as they endure, the world remains stable, the elements stay contained, and the fundamental forces that enable existence continue their ancient dance. The concept of weather as a manageable force finds embodiment in the weather trio of Hoenn, 3 legendary Pokémon whose conflicts and cooperation determine climatic patterns across the entire region. Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza represent land, sea, and sky respectively, 3 domains whose balance creates habitable environment. When harmony prevails, Hoenn experiences weather diversity that supports rich ecosystems. When conflict erupts, the region faces existential threats that could render it uninhabitable within days. Groudon embodies the land's desire to expand, to reclaim territory from the ocean and create new continents where life can flourish above water. The mythology describes Groudon as the continent Pokémon, a being whose very footsteps raise mountains and expand land masses. This expansionist nature serves ecological purpose, providing new habitats as sea levels rise or populations grow beyond existing land capacity. However, unchecked expansion would eventually drain the oceans entirely, creating global desert that would collapse both terrestrial and marine ecosystems. Physically, Groton's design incorporates volcanic and tectonic imagery. The red coloration suggests magma and heat, while the armored plating resembles cooled lava flows or tectonic plates. The claws are massive and built for digging, capable of burrowing through bedrock to reach the planet's molten core. The overall silhouette conveys raw power and an immovability, a being that cannot be pushed or redirected once it begins moving. This design perfectly captures Groudon's role as an unstoppable geological force. The ground typing reflects Groudon's connection to solid Earth, while the fire typing in Primal Groudon form represents the molten rock and geothermal energy it channels. This combination creates interesting battle dynamics where Groudon excels against electric, poison, rock, and steel types while remaining vulnerable to water and ground attacks. The typing mirrors Groudon's ecological role, dominating certain environments while being checked by others that maintain necessary balance. Groudon's signature ability, Drought, transforms weather conditions to harsh sunlight upon entering battle. This ability negates water-type attacks' effectiveness while boosting fire-type damage, mechanical representation of how Groudon's presence literally evaporates moisture from the environment. In lore terms, Drought symbolizes Groudon's fundamental opposition to water, its very existence creating conditions hostile to aquatic life. This ability makes Groudon a centerpiece of sun-based team strategies in competitive play, supporting fire and grass types while hindering water Pokémon. The move Precipice Blades, Groudon's signature attack, manifests its ground manipulation abilities as an offensive technique. Massive stone spikes erupt from the earth to impale opponents, demonstrating both Groudon's connection to bedrock and its capacity for devastating violence. The move's high base power and accuracy make it a formidable option, though its limited PP prevents spamming. This mechanical balance mirrors lore, suggesting that even Groudon must conserve energy when performing extreme geological feats. Primal Reversion represents Groudon's true form, the state it occupied during ancient times before sealing itself into dormancy. The transformation emphasizes fire typing, replacing ground with fire to create ground or fire combination that eliminates water's quadruple effectiveness while introducing new weaknesses. This form exhibits enhanced special attack and emphasizes Drought ability's intensity, creating sunlight so harsh that water-type moves fail entirely. Primal Groudon represents the apocalyptic potential that necessitated its original sealing. The mythology surrounding Groudon describes endless conflict with Kyogre, two primordial forces locked in eternal struggle for dominance. When Groudon awakens and begins expanding land, Kyogre responds by generating massive rainfall and tsunamis to reclaim territory. Their battles reshape coastlines and alter regional geography in ways that persist for millennia. Only Rayquaza's intervention prevents these conflicts from escalating to planetary catastrophe, though even the Sky Guardian cannot permanently resolve the fundamental opposition between land and sea. Culturally, Hoenn's population treats Groudon with mixture of reverence and terror. Agricultural communities appreciate the new land Groudon creates, recognizing opportunities for expansion and development. Coastal settlements fear its power, knowing that extreme land expansion means ocean regression that would destroy their way of life. This divided opinion reflects genuine tension within Hoenn society, between those who benefit from land expansion and those harmed by it. Archaeological evidence suggests ancient Hoenn civilizations witnessed Groudon's full power and developed sealing techniques specifically to contain it. The Cave of Origin, where Groudon rests in modern times, isn't naturally occurring cavern, but deliberately constructed containment facility. The red orb that awakens Groudon serves as both key and warning, a device that controls access while reminding future generations of the danger locked beneath their feet. These ancient precautions demonstrate that past civilizations learned through harsh, experienced the necessity of keeping Groudon dormant. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed drifting through these quiet moments, there's another video waiting on the left of your screen. Let it play while you rest. You might discover something gentle before sleep takes you.